Welcome to our third installment of my new podcast, The Quest for Why. This week we're featuring Clayton Ryan, my good friend from the area, but has migrated to South Dakota, but came back to fix your teeth.
This is actually it. This is the whole reason I'm here.
Yeah.
Right
Oh,
here.
just the podcast.
Just the
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Came back to exclusively to talk to me about anything and everything and the human experience and why we do what we do and why others do what they do. Clayton, how's life been up there in South Dakota?
I think we were talking about this earlier, and I
Yeah.
brushed up on it, where South Dakotans are like Iowans, but to a third degree, where it's country living and it's that country lifestyle, but these are the real cowboys. Like
Yeah.
I used to wear a cowboy hat sometimes when I played, and I got up there and I was working at the Civic Center in Rapid City during the stock show, which is one of the largest cattle shows in the world, definitely the U.S. But I remember working there and realizing, like, I am not a cowboy.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my most recent identity crises, but definitely thinking about that. And it certainly helped me find a more honest, I think, version of myself than I wanted to, because I was realizing, it's like, I've been living this sort of life about like the cowboy living and whatnot. And I was born and raised in Arizona, and then grew up, or my hometown is Winterset, Iowa, which is a little bit of a rodeo town. As far as Iowa goes, I should say. Now that I've been to places like Casper, Wyoming, and Cheyenne, like, I can't say that that's a rodeo town anymore, but yeah, South Dakotans are very much like Iowans, just to a third degree, more intense, rugged people, if you will.
Yeah. I see on your your social media and stuff, you're sort of reconnecting to, or maybe connecting, I don't know your background, but connecting to nature. I see you hiking all the time. How is that? How has being in South Dakota impacted your, I guess, view of the natural world?
It's definitely more in your face all the time in terms of like the nature, especially living in the Black Hills. When you're driving through the Black Hills, there's just endless places to hike because there's the trails and whatnot, but there's also just Forest Service roads where you'll be driving along and you look to the right and you'll see just this gate and it's got the Forest Service sign on it. And you could just park there and walk there. And some of them go like a quarter mile, just kind of fizzle off into nothing. Some of them go for miles and connect with other ones. So you could really spend all day just purposely getting lost without the risks, of getting lost.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing. It's like a diet Colorado, really, in a lot of ways, where it's full of day trips. And there are trails there. I've got a friend, Mike McKay, and he's got a page that he posts all these through hikes he does. Like, he's done the Superior Hiking Trail, and in about a month he's heading off to do the Appalachian Trail, which is a 5 to 6 month hike.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he came up in the summertime and did the Centennial Trail, which is a 120-mile hike. And I joined him on the first and last day of that trek. And so there are opportunities like that for big, long nature hikes. As far as it's affected me, I really became an outdoors person towards the end of college. I think I found that I wanted to be really connected to nature, and I just wasn't. And I'd gone camping a few times in my earlier years of college that were always just a disaster. Like, I was scared and I was uncomfortable, and I'd hear noises and all that, and it'd freak me out, and the whole thing just caused anxiety. And I just started thinking, like, I don't know why that is. I shouldn't. I should be more afraid of going to a school and living in a city with people than I should be about in the woods.
Yeah.
And so I just forced myself to get more comfortable in the outdoors, doing hikes and camping out with friends. And it's really just one of those things that the more time you spend in it, the more you realize how much control you have over your experience, and you don't worry about the things that you don't have control over.
Yeah.
I should say one of the things I've tried to show in my videos and tried to talk about in various videos is like the ideas of freedom that have changed for me,
Hmm.
where when you're out in the woods, there's no one trying to sell you anything, and there's no one trying to tell you what to think, and there's no one trying to tell you how you should feel about something happening in Dallas, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's true freedom where no one knows you're there, you know, unless, you know, you should always have someone know where you are, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That way you don't, next thing they don't find you with buzzards pulling out your
Right.
eyes, but
Yeah.
or bears eating your face, but you definitely can go out there and like you're completely alone and free, and the only
Mm-hmm.
decisions you have to make are, do I keep going forward or do I turn back? So
Yeah.
that's, to me, is like that's true freedom. Like that's
Yeah.
as free as it gets at a fundamental level, and that's been like a huge part of my experience living in the Black Hills is
Yeah.
coming to grips with freedom.
That's something I actually have been sort of grappling with lately. For some reason, I mean, I haven't been outdoors in a while. Like, I haven't scratched my exploration adventure itch in too long. Um, but I have been dealing a lot with, like, I've been getting into politics and the stock market and uh, even music. And for some reason, I just keep coming back to, like, all of this is just, it's so far removed from the natural world. It's all things that we've just created. And sometimes I get into like I don't know. It's also meta.
Yeah, I mean, the more you think about it, you know, the more you want to get back to that sort of fundamental version
Yeah.
of what a human should be,
Yeah.
and that's dangerous because you just can't in a lot of ways. Like
Yeah.
the way that the world is right now, you just got to settle for giving yourself X amount of time to be in the civilized world
Mm-hmm.
and X amount of time to be what a human should be,
Right.
just roaming around naked in the woods and all that. And
Yeah.
so that's it's all about setting those boundaries for yourself. And I
Yeah.
really started getting into it because I watched this guy on YouTube. He's this Norwegian author that writes about Vikings and Viking history. He was also a bodybuilder, and his name's Björn Andreas Bull Hansen,
That's a
which
name.
is the most
awesome.
Norwegian. Like
be
the only
right
thing more Norwegian would be like Sven Svensson or something.
Uh-huh.
But oh yeah. Washed out in a holy glow. Holy glow. But
What was his name again?
Björn Andreas Bull Hansen, and he's a little bit more of a libertarian, sort of not really a conservative type, but he talks about a lot of things that I think are important to keep considering amidst all of this social change and all this social revolution, because he's very big on small government, and it's like most of his videos, he's walking out in the woods in Norway, and making a campfire, and he makes coffee over the fire, or sometimes he'll cook like bacon or make some bread. He's done that before, but he'll just go out and talk about things like Stoicism. He talks about like men's mental health specifically, which is a big one that I think a lot of people could get into, because it's a big, burly, bearded man talking about men stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
And it's he definitely shares a lot of his sentiments that I found are a little bit more true in myself than I thought. Like how, you know, we've gotten to a point where in a lot of ways we're pushing masculinity in a way as almost like a bad thing, and like for me, it's, you know, it's still a thing that people are and people exist as. And it's all about, you know, it doesn't have to mean like hyper bro, like let's go eat some steaks and drive NASCAR.
Yeah.
Like that's not masculinity. Masculinity is like, it's a sense of control in your environment. It's a sense of freedom, like what we were talking about earlier. And it's things like that that tie so nicely when you're hearing them from a guy out in the woods. You know, that really, like, you can tell he understands what he's saying and what he's talking about. It's not just some crazy radical guy on Facebook saying what he thinks. You know, it's not like QAnon or nothing. It's a dude that definitely lives the way he tells other people they should live too. So
Yeah.
stuff
Huh.
like that. That's what I've really been focusing on when I'm in the woods. It's that
Yeah.
just having the grounds to know that what you're saying is true and that you are putting your money where your mouth is personally before you start telling other people how to do their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of like reducing things, getting out of the world that we, I don't know, the word I just keep coming back to is meta. The world that the civilization we've constructed, and sort of returning to something simpler to find like core truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so important now because we live in a epidemic of misinformation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about that than any virus, any pandemic that's been going around.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a big one, and I'm not going to avoid that.
Well, and it's been compounded by this whole era of misinformation, I think.
For sure. And in a lot of ways, like I think you and I were talking before this, with my time spent in the land of Mount Rushmore guns and Christie Nome, I understand conservatives a whole lot better than I did. And I totally empathize with all the stuff I've seen in the news, the protests where they want, they want to lift mandates and they want to open businesses back up, like we were seeing in Minneapolis was one, Michigan. I totally understand where they're coming from in a lot of ways because I also don't like a big government. And they, imagine you're a business owner back in March of 2020 and say you own a restaurant in your town, and then suddenly your governor says you have to shut down your restaurant or go to just to go. And meanwhile, we're also not going to compensate you for that.
Yeah.
And we're also going to let places like Taco Bell and Hobby Lobby stay open, but your small business has to close. And I totally understand, there's so much misinformation spread on both sides too. It goes both ways 100%. That, you can find scholarly, what we would call, from stuff that you and I would use in a college article,
Right.
in a college paper that's certified like that. That's definitely has merit to it. And there's information on both sides about the effectiveness of masks, about the spread, how it spreads, I should say, viruses like that. And so I don't hold anyone accountable for the beliefs that they do about what's going on in the world, because you can find it imright.com at any time.
Anything. Yeah, you can find pretty much anything to support any argument, I'm pretty sure.
For sure. And that's just kind of been like my goal. That's kind of been my life mantra, I'd say, for the last year. Is just I want to know absolute truth and do my part to just make sure that if I am sharing things publicly, that it's truth, because it's just as bad on both sides. And I've been hypercritical of the left, especially in a lot of ways, because to spread misinformation and be a bigot is the same as to spread misinformation in the name of progressiveness.
Yeah. And there's a lot there.
So yeah, sorry, I just unpacked that and laid it
No,
on the
that's
table.
okay. Whenever I start thinking or getting into the politics rabbit hole, I have to consider how deep I'm willing to go.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't. Don't want to get this thing sinking on the third episode.
Yeah. No. I'm down to go there. It just takes a while,
It's a different frame of mind.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, the left is definitely. I think we're in a unique spot where, to push the progressive agenda, we are having to reach and almost stoop to the levels that the other side is pushing theirs.
For sure.
Whereas, and then the progressives are getting angry with the centrists who aren't doing anything, which is what they've always done.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know. It's not a balance that is yin and yang in my eyes. It's a balance that is just destructive.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No. The two evils balance each other out so that it's all equalized evil.
Yeah, it's not exactly. That's not at least how I foresee it ending. But
yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important to kind of steer it back into the more positive. Let's make a lesson out of this. Is when you're out in nature. That's where you get to see these things and think about them in a way that only you can own. Where, you know, if I'm out in the woods thinking about something that I saw in the news, which, by the way, if it was off of a 24 hours news network, it's just null and void. Don't even bother with it.
Yep.
I listen to Bill Burr's podcast, the Monday Morning Podcast, and he phrased it so eloquently in his Boston accent how it's pretty much that two things. He says, one, the 24 hours news networks are like, the best news you can get is your local news, because if they say something wrong or false, you know where to find them in your community.
Yeah.
So they got to be careful, because like they'll see you at the grocery store. And the other thing he says that I thought was super, you know, crass but eloquent at the same time is that, you know, like conservatives, like they don't pretend, they don't lie to you that they're taking advantage of you, that they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Democrats pretend to give a shit and
Right.
then proceed to not give a shit. So that's the basis of my politics right now, is Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast. No.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. I like him. But about the local news thing, also, it's easier to utilize your right and your ability to boycott the smaller the entity is, obviously. And it just, when you're looking at these like national or international media conglomerates and you're like, I'm going to stop using Facebook because all of these atrocities, I mean, what are you really doing? You're just inhibiting your own social, life, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I wouldn't have Facebook if it weren't for the marketing tool that it's become for me.
Yeah.
I found out a long time ago that when I step out of my music box and share political discussion, it's neither gratifying nor is it successful, because I'm always going to find people, mostly on my social medias, that agree, and the ones that don't aren't going to say much.
Yep.
And even if I were to go on and say the most true, authentic, verifiable statement, it still doesn't do anything. And so I just end up deleting all my posts, because I think it's like this sitting here really only is just bad for me, because everyone that's seen it and it's already passed through and everyone's given it the thumbs up and said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And now someone else collected that to throw in a database saying, oh, this is how he feels about that, so we could sell him this. That's the nature of the app. And so I've learned just this is a business tool for promoting myself as a business, and anything outside of that is only going to shorten my life.
Yeah, honestly, or at least it's an unproductive way of spending time. Doom scrolling.
Yeah.
That's
Does your phone tell you how much time you spend on Facebook?
It does. Not
Or
on Facebook
on
specifically,
screen time?
but yeah. It's honestly, it's depressing, but I think it's good, because it's good to keep tabs on that kind of thing.
I'm glad they threw that in
in
the phone. Like, what? That's Apple has done a lot of things in their time that are a little bit on the sketchy side, but they care about privacy, security, and your screen time. That's more than I would have given them 10 years ago. As a company.
In the past year, I've sort of realized that Apple is actually the best of the big tech, I think.
For sure.
As far as caring about the individual consumer. Maybe it's for marketing. I mean, I guess everything in the end, the way our world works, is for money, but
well, even when they had that San Bernardino shooter back in, I can't remember, I want to say it was like 2015, 16. It's probably longer than that, and just so much has happened. But they wouldn't even unlock that guy's phone for the FBI, because if we do it now, we can't show that the government can force us as a private company to reveal our clients' information, which was a controversial move, but a cool show of just solidarity with the consumer.
Yeah. So
I mean, again, it could also be for the marketing as well, because that looks good.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but is that necessarily bad?
It's that's the thing. Yeah. As long as they're marketing at least a good product that isn't totally malevolent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if the only ulterior motive is more money and it benefits society and the individual, I can't think of a, you know, I guess so be it.
Yeah, it's the world we live in, and
Yeah.
like I was saying, setting the boundaries for yourself is
Yeah.
total key to it, and that's with all social media too.
Mhm.
With Facebook, I found a whole lot of ways where you can make that app what you want it in terms of like they have extensions that you could put on your desktop that remove the stories function.
Okay.
So when you go on there, you don't have to see that, oh, Joe's eating at McDonald's.
Yeah,
Thanks,
the
Joe.
the
Like,
temptation to click one and then scroll through all of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they designed that so streamlined where it's like you just hit it once and it goes to the next one.
And
before
there's
you
going to be
know
an
it-
ad every 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
why do I need to care about, some. I get a lot of shoe ads
Really?
on my Instagram.
Huh.
And
Do you shop for shoes on your phone?
I don't.
That's
Well,
so
I clicked on one once.
there you go.
And I was like, oh, those are cool boots. And then I read the reviews and like these boots are made of plastic. And I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
And now I get the same ad 3 or 4 times. Like,
Yeah.
if I were to pull up my Instagram right now, I'm sure I would get a boot ad within 3 scrollers.
Yeah. You know, sometimes if I like accidentally misclick on an ad, I'll then go on a spree of trying to be completely random with my clicks to try and I don't know if
To
it
mess
works,
with
but like
the-
throw off the algorithm.
Yeah, throw off the algorithm.
It might not work, but it makes me feel better about it. So
Like they're sitting there like, what is this guy thinking?
yeah.
He
How
wants
can we target
boots.
this person?
He likes boots, but he also likes White Claws, but he only likes the lime ones.
Can't say I've ever clicked on a White Claw ad.
Yeah, let's see. I definitely know with the algorithms how they show up on your phone can be really confusing. Or like YouTube is one that confuses me. Like generally speaking, those ads should somewhat reflect what you check out.
Yeah.
I feel like that's normally what they do. And I got concerned for a while because I was getting ads from this one guy that was saying, like, I figured out the formula for women's brains.
Yeah,
Like, never get
yeah.
a woman to not talk to you again.
Yeah.
I was struggling to like find
I
women
get
that would
those
talk to
too.
me, and I was like, "What? I'm happily in a relationship with a very loving partner. Where am I getting this from? Like, what did
Yeah.
I click that they were saying this guy's obviously struggling to talk to women?" And
Yeah. It's like the strangest form of AI, like psychoanalyzation.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
weird.
Maybe it's like since I was looking for new boots, they're like, "Oh, he's trying to dress up,
Show
So he
off.
can-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
go out on the town and make an impression."
Yeah.
And they're like, I bet he'd know. Though I hate those ads so much
Yeah.
because they are so just humiliating towards women or degrading
Yeah.
towards women. Like,
Yeah.
this one simple trick and
You're
you
gonna
can
get them
figure
all.
it out.
Yeah. You can have all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, is that why you're 45 and single doing these ads?
Yeah. Someone couldn't find a better way to make money.
It was that and the Jazzercise thing. You seen that? It's like a little mouth guard thing you chew
Actually,
on,
yeah, and it like chisels
tones
your jaw
face.
bone. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that that's really damaging to your face.
Yeah, that
I-
does not sound. Sounds like it would wear away something. I don't know. Rachel is here. She said hi guys, and she said that screen time. I think the Apple thing helps her too. So
Oh, and yeah, that reminds me. For people that
Hi,
are trying
Rachel,
to
by
use
the way.
use less Facebook, you might like this too, Rachel. You people that are trying to use less Facebook, you can also download this Chrome extension. I can't remember what it's called, but you literally just Google unfollow, like Facebook unfollow extension for Chrome, and it shows you all the people on your friends list that you haven't interacted with in like a year, 8 months, 5 months, or ever. And I cut out over 900 friends, and I was scrolling through this, and I was like, why am I friends with this hotel bartender from Chicago that
Yeah.
I talked to once?
Yeah.
And like I haven't interacted with this person in a year and a half, but I still had to see their opinions and everything, and just like throw that into my brain to just digest.
more clutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when it's like when you want to get your nutrients for the day, and you're like, oh, I need some carrots and some salmon, some blueberries to meet all my needs. And then you go to a buffet
Yeah.
and you have to also eat fries and chicken nuggets and
Yeah.
sushi. Meanwhile, your body's like, we got to find the blueberries and salmon in here.
Yeah.
That's what Facebook is like if you don't tame it.
Yeah.
It's like
Wow,
buffet.
it's like mental obesity. I never thought about it like that.
It just dawned on me, that thought. It's like
Yeah.
you're trying to get something. Everyone's on Facebook for just one thing or like a couple things, like you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
And yet you have to take the whole scope of what people are on it for
Yeah.
and sort through it. And doom scrolling is that, where it's just like you're looking for something and you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And 40 minutes passes, your thumb hurts, your neck's craned, your eyeballs hurt. Yeah.
And it's not even like you're not even like training your brain. There's no like, it's not like you're working out by sifting through that information. It's just clutter, heavy.
Oh, definitely. You have to carry other people's problems with you
Yeah.
because of Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's why with an app like that friend unfollower thing, you know, well, it's an unfriender where I removed like 900 friends, and then you can further unfollow a bunch of people. So I literally only see the relevant people in my life, like school music people that I care to even follow, which you're one of them. I hope you know.
Nice. On Facebook?
On Facebook.
So you get my one post every like 7 or 8 months.
Exactly.
Probably.
I'm just sitting there like, maybe today's the
waiting.
day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I literally only see people in my immediate area, which helps if like someone's like, oh, we had a slot open up this Friday at Murphy's. Anyone want to play a show? Or anyone in the area know a bass player that could record some parts?
Nice.
Versus like seeing someone's angry rant about the Cedar Falls snowplows.
Yeah. I wonder if it is. You think it is productive to have a place where at least someone can think that their rant is, I don't know, somewhere to yell into the void? Do you think that Facebook is a healthy tool for that?
That's Tinder for me. No, I haven't been on Tinder in a long time. No, I don't know. I mean, that's why I like nature, because I can go out there and just think about these things and mutter to myself if I want, and then realize by the time I get back that it's like, all right, this wouldn't help if I told anyone about it.
Yeah.
I get that feeling all the time. Believe me, like I want to constantly be sharing my opinion about things and my perspective, and I know just it's not going to get anywhere. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could lay out the best thesis of my life on Facebook with all the resources and all the citations and all the footnotes, and it's not going to change anyone's life.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 people might reconsider something that they thought, but no, it's not the platform for even successful things.
Yeah.
I wish there was some sort of I think Yik Yak was kind of like that, where you could just yell into the void, but then it got all racist and weird. So
Yeah, wow, I don't even recall. I remember downloading it at some point.
it was here in Cedar Falls, and they banned it because, like humans do, within the first couple hours, someone turned it into a racist platform.
Yeah.
Which is
as
just
they
cool.
do.
Just great.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah, can't have anonymity. Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing about like hiding behind a screen. Even if you're not anonymous, and I've said this, I can't remember if I've said this on the podcast, but I've been talking about it to people lately, how when you're not looking someone in the eye, you lose, I think, like probably like 90% of your empathy for another human being.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, and then people just unload, and there's no reason not to, because there's not going to be a consequence.
Oh, for sure.
Unless maybe the person knows where you live and they're going to come and sock you, but how many times has that happened?
That's
you
a
know?
bigger issue than just the social media, if that happens.
Right, yeah. So that's actually, I usually think about that in the Twitter context, because I think Facebook is like its thing, you know. I feel like it's like a tier above, like a tier more official almost than Twitter. But on Twitter, it's just like, I don't even know how to describe it.
I got off Twitter because I remember I was getting into arguments with fellow progressive people about the way I was saying something being, like not helping, or like the way I was I just got into arguments
Like
with people that were arguing that I was arguing with them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is madness. This is,
like
what I'm saying is
subtleties
true.
and subtleties in approaching like arguments or stances.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a weird. Yeah, empathy and patience, I think, is just lost
Even
in
on
that setting.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. Like, think about all the times you've seen something real, like, mean on Facebook, and then
Mhm.
think about every time you've seen it in real life. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen
Oh,
nearly as
no.
frequently.
Yeah,
People are
no.
generally to themselves, and we're all just trying to do what we can and do our best. And that's the thing that, where this year was so maddening about seeing all the anger and bigotry come from both sides. It's like, what you're seeing is not how people are.
Yeah.
Real, like, people are generally, if anything, at the worst, misinformed.
Yeah.
That's the worst it is. They are
Right.
misinformed, and that's a long road to climb to get someone out of that. And that's not even. And most people that would hear this right now are automatically thinking, "Oh, a conservative down south that thinks that black people are ruining the country."
Yeah.
But I'm talking also people on the left that think if I attack everyone online that says even the slightest thing wrong, and I get them canceled from their job, I've helped the world.
Yeah.
That's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
That's worse because you're seeing people lose their jobs for things they said 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle King, you remember that kid at University of Iowa held up the sign to
Yes.
Venmo him for money and
Yes.
for Bush, and
Yeah.
he raised like what 3.5 million for the Iowa Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
And some hero went onto his Twitter and found like something he said when he was 14
Yeah.
that used like the R word, or he said the N. It was either R or N word. I can't remember. And suddenly, like, that's the focus. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I know things I did 2 years ago that are bad, and I don't hope no one finds out.
Mhm.
Or I should say, let me back up. I hope that people know I've grown. Let's
Yes.
say let's phrase it that
Right.
way. That I would never say things like that. So
Right. Yeah.
That's the what we see on the left now. It's just as bad as someone being a bigot and ignorant on the
Yeah.
right.
You know, that's also something I sort of go back and forth on because I think the one positive thing that'll come out of that is that people are learning that you have to tread a little more lightly in your public statements because now they're all recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, I would say right now, our percentage of politicians who have dirt in their past is very high, if not, everyone.
Oh, for sure.
So maybe this is like silver lining out of this whole thing because I also don't cancel culture is a cliche, but I don't think it's all that productive either. But maybe we see a new generation of politicians who, at least outwardly, haven't had, like big missteps as far as like racial, sexist prejudice or any form of bigotry, at least publicly. So that would be my only, I guess, counterpoint to that argument. Maybe it is healthy to force people to be a little more mindful of what they put out there.
Right. Well, and I do like that. I do like the accountability
Yeah.
aspect that exists
Mhm.
now. And that goes in a lot of ways where it's like, even though we're used to seeing the sound bites of something that someone said taken out of context, we now also all possess the ability to record ourselves.
Mhm.
So that way, in the event that someone calls you out for something you said, and you could be like, yeah, but here's what I said in the context, and pull out your phone.
Yeah.
And we're kind of living in a world where you have to record your own self for your own safety.
To back yourself up.
Yeah, for your own security, because that's the thing. It's like where it in the past malevolently it's been used to capture sound bites and get people canceled,
Mhm.
and now you have the power to have the truth with it, and that's, I think, in a lot of ways that's crucial for people like myself that spend a lot of their time building up an online presence
Mhm.
and seeing other entertainers and comedians, musicians having things brought up
Mhm.
that immediately, like, they get dropped by their talent agency. They immediately are scripted out of movies they were in and replaced. And then I've seen it happen a few times this last year where, like, a comedian that I really liked and really followed along had an accusation come up, and within days of being dropped from their talent agency, the full story comes out, and it's not what it originally was, and it's
Yeah.
it's just granted that the things that they do, some of these things, like Louis C.K. is a good example. Like he did some gross things, and at the same time though, imagine if when that had come out and 3 days later, someone, he's like, yeah, but here's what actually happened and showed something, but he'd already been dropped by his talent agency, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, people should not be gross weirdos.
Yes.
That's definitely like, especially
think,
if you're in the entertainment industry, don't be a gross weirdo.
Right. I hope that's a given.
Yeah, don't be a gross weirdo. Yeah. And if you're going to be a gross weirdo, do it with people that consent to being a gross weirdo with you.
Yeah.
Because, we're all human.
Adults who consent.
Yeah. That's a big one. We're all gross weirdos in some way. Yeah. So as long as you're with people that are okay with it, then do it.
Yes.
But, also don't get yourself in a situation where things could be taken in a different way and get you losing your job.
Yeah.
Because that, it's just, you gotta have your own equity. And I think that's another important part is like when it comes to dealing with law enforcement too, because I don't necessarily I don't follow along the lines of the ACAB, like all cops are evil movement and that sort of movement with it, because that's just not how the world works. Like everything is an instant case by case basis. And that being said, I've had personal experiences with the police where if I had a video camera recording what had happened, things would have turned out very differently. Yeah. And their word against yours, not saying that they're going to act malevolently or dangerously, but you just need to have that ability and like have a plan in mind for when you get pulled over that you can have the full story as well as them. And that's just a big thing that I've been considering is the plus of the technology that we have is you have the power to have the truth as much as the people that are given the truth automatically. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I do. ACAB is a tricky thing because obviously it's not true, literally. But I do. The reason I sort of still stand by it is because any person that is willing to join that industry and not be completely dedicated to basically overturning it and completely reforming it,
for sure,
is bad. They're not helping anything. In fact, they're hurting it. So that's a thing that's something I do not know the answer to is police reform.
Oh, it's definitely it is super tricky too, and that's a whole nother conversation we could also spend hours on.
Yeah, maybe that's the next episode.
Yeah. And that's the thing where it's like everything has to be taken on that case by case basis, and this is just with people, this is with musicians, this is with experiences. Like nothing is in absolutes. What's like only Siths talk in absolutes? Like,
yes,
that's the phrase.
Siths and American politicians. And the people. I mean, any American who follows politics or identifies with either of those sides. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the thing too. Is like, again, going back to nature. Like when you're in nature, it's like, oh, I've seen a mountain like that before, and then you go and you walk through that mountain, and you're like, oh, this is way different now that I'm like in the moment, and I'm taking this as a different time from a previous mountain.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Everything exists connected in some way, but also separate from like total influence from other things. Whereas somehow we've created this ideology where if you think everything is political and everything has a side that you have to conform with if you want your voice to be heard. And I was actually, when we were talking about that earlier, I was about to ask you about that, but we kept moving. Do you have any idea how we got there? Like such polarized and everything is an absolute.
Social media, it's 100%. It's 100% a mixture of. There I am talking in an absolute. It's a mixture of, malevolent forces that are using social media for political and business advantages and unintentional harm. So, like in the 2016 election, there were whole meme pages that were like conservative targeted that started off as just like your generic meme page for conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the good old Clint Eastwood, like look at all these soft snowflakes, meme
Yeah.
pages, things
Yeah.
things like your uncle or something might
Mm-hmm.
share, um, and they slowly, on a scheduled sort of basis, turned into anti-Hillary memes and anti-liberal propaganda, and those pages were all sourced in Russia. Like these were Russian based, like the people that ran these pages, and they eventually just turned into bots. That way, if you could remove an admin, you could just add another one on, and there was stuff like that. That's purposeful, malevolent manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
and they use it to target. Like this last year in the election, black voters were targeted by a Russian
Mm-hmm.
agency or a bunch of operatives, but they disguise it by putting it in Nambia, and there is that sort of thing going on where there are just it's legal because it's just meme pages, but the effects of them are damaging,
Yeah.
and you can target people with Facebook in that sense.
Mm.
So that's like the malevolent stuff that has divided us for sure. And the accidental stuff, the unintentional, is a good example. Is like what's happening with like the wokeness on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Is that people that truly believe they are doing good and are totally well intended people are subscribing to this almost cult like religion
Mm-hmm.
of wokeness where
Mm-hmm.
things were said such as if you don't do anything for the Black Lives Matter movement, you're a racist,
Mm-hmm.
or if you stand idly by, you're a racist, and that's religious dogma. That's no different than the Westboro Baptist Church saying if you don't subscribe to our views of peace by being a soldier, you are a murderer and you're going to burn in hell. It's no
Yeah.
different, and that's the unintentional, because these people, they're not trying to sink the ship of
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
but by subscribing to this dogmatic version of social justice where you make more enemies than friends by telling people that they're racists
Yeah.
for not even doing anything.
Right.
Like that's that's just as damaging as people purposefully doing it.
Yeah.
And it's tragic because it is people that mean super well.
Yeah.
Same with like that's when like the whole police reform got lumped into Black Lives Matter.
Uh-huh.
It's, statistically speaking, the problem is that the cops are killing everyone. Like 1,000 people, it was 999 people died in 2020, and the majority of them were not black. But the problem is, we lumped it into that, saying like they're systematically killing black, and no one denies that there's systematic racism that exists in our laws, and you can find it existing today. Like there was just some discriminatory legislature passed for like like landlords in Cedar Rapids could pretty much, it's loosely print like text enough that you could deny someone household or
It
like
passed
housing.
recently. It wasn't
I shouldn't
repealed.
say no. I don't think it was passed.
Or
It was proposed. I meant to say.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't want to misspeak.
That sounds like something that would be being repealed right now.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't blatantly say a landlord can
Right.
deny because of your ethnicity, but it's loosely written enough that something like that could happen.
Yeah.
And so.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Is like we don't deny that racism is a huge problem in our country, and these movements that are happening are incredibly important, and it's good to see them have the traction that they did.
Yeah.
But to make an enemy out of the entire police force by saying that you guys are all racist and all killing people is no different than the Russians putting a Facebook page out there for conservatives to radicalize them.
Yeah.
And it just sucks because those people really are good intentioned. It is a good intention, like we want to see change, but you can't have the blinders on like a horse.
Yeah, it's a good and frankly necessary cause, but I think ultimately the problem is approaching it using lots of very pointed statements rather than encouraging conversations.
Exactly.
I think that's really the biggest problem, and I think honestly it might boil down to the fact that much of this is either happening or being mobilized over social media, and well, some of them have character limits, which really limits you, and others don't. But typing is not having a conversation. Everyone knows
Exactly.
it's much less efficient to type a conversation than to speak it.
For sure.
And I think that's just, I think the lack of conversation on these topics and the almost encouragement of statement focused campaigns is could be a caused by that.
Well, and like you said earlier, the lack of empathy because it's all online
Yeah.
is 100% the reason why people can feel more okay and get radicalized because they don't have as much moment and there's not enough time to stop and think about the other person as a human.
Yeah.
It's just type, 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 type.
Yeah.
And no, that's definitely a big issue right now is that we're not having those conversations where if you were to sit down with someone that disagreed with you about race or some of these radicalized white nationalists, and you were to sit down and talk to them why they are the way they are, you're going to find it's like pretty much the same thing we all want.
Yeah.
You know, they feel that the country has turned its back on them, and it just so happens that a certain race of people is the people they think is the cause of it.
Yeah.
Versus people on the left might say the country's turned its back on us and it's the Republicans' fault. And so encouraging that conversation will get you much further along than saying, if you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Yeah. Those enemies aren't going to disappear. They're going to continue opposing you.
Yeah. And in fact, they're going to feel more likely to continue what they're doing because you now validate all that they're fighting for. Like white nationalists, if you tell them that they're just poor redneck racist white trash, they already know that.
Yeah.
Like the industries, the coal industry is taking a huge dive, automobile industry, like those people, especially in that like the South and in the iron or the Rust Belt, excuse me, like that are like where all these pockets of nationalists are popping up. Like they are experiencing all those things, and then you just call them a racist piece of shit because of those things happening to them. They're definitely going to do something about it because now they have the fuel.
Yeah. And they're sort of, I mean, saying I don't necessarily like generalizations, but
Right.
but that sort of person's infrastructure is also starting to collapse as we're seeing the sort of the industries that came out of the industrial era aren't all, I guess they don't have as much longevity as we previously thought. So their whole like economy is beginning to collapse. And so how could they not feel as though they're backed into a corner and they need to take their nation back,
For sure. And we didn't do a good job of fighting that by yelling and videotaping people and putting them up saying, look at this racist, terrible person, where that person starts getting death threats
Yeah.
just for, being a racist old person in a McDonald's. Like, what did you think that person thought about the world?
Yeah.
It's like, and now that you've made them almost like a martyr,
Yeah.
sort of thing. That's we need the actual empathy that we keep marketing as Democrats right now. We need to actually practice that
And unity.
now. And unity.
Yeah.
We need to actually practice that empathy now and realize it's like, yeah, these people. There are some racist people. There are some misinformed, radicalized people. We had a bunch of people storm the Capitol, which is borderline treason, which that's a whole nother thing. But even then, like, those people didn't get here overnight. It's years of just being told that you're the problem in our country and you're you're the reason you lost your job and you're the reason that the government didn't bail out your industry.
Yeah.
It just only makes them more encouraged and validated.
Yeah. One of the scariest parts of that day to me was seeing, we saw those people, and those were not people that are going to die out soon. Those were middle-aged to maybe even younger people. And I feel like a lot of times the left sort of, at least subconsciously, on some level, the left believes we're just going to do our thing and hope that the conservatives die out because they're all old people. Well, and then that day happened, and those people aren't going anywhere. Maybe they're going to jail, but they're going to be back. Maybe they can vote again. I don't know. I guess we'll see how
it all plays out.
What they're charged with, but
oh yeah, no, it's not an age specific demographic. There's tendencies as there are with every group of people, but it's not just like waiting for grandma and grandpa to die and then we'll have utopia. It's consistent practice of
Yeah.
empathy and understanding.
And just working with people. I think that's one of the wisest things Donald Trump has ever said was, what did he say? I think it was in some debate with Joe, something along the lines of you have to convince them. He was attacking Joe's or the Obama administration's lack of working across the aisle,
Yeah.
which maybe was their fault, maybe wasn't. But Donald was like, "You got to work with them," and I was like, I mean, that's very oversimplified, but it's true,
It is true, yeah.
and that's really what we have to do.
Yeah. And that was one thing that was super interesting to me in the first debate was how we've gotten to a point where Donald Trump could have been up there as he was saying that Joe Biden was tough on crime and particularly black crime. He was literally telling his voter base, this guy's better at it than I am. And somehow conservatives that were radicalized by Trump could hear him say that and still think that Donald Trump was the better candidate when he's sitting there on stage criticizing Joe Biden's approach to crime. It was maddening. It was crazy. It's like he's literally arguing that Joe Biden's a better candidate because of this, and people are just like, "Yeah, go Trump."
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
it's
like
crazy
from a speech standpoint, not even a political one. It was just like the opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that happened frequently. I especially in the beginning of this whole Trump phenomenon, people were talking about how, he's a businessman, he's a good talker, he can persuade people. I just never saw that. There were so many holes, but somehow he kept reining these people in. I just never got that.
Yeah.
I think maybe it has to do with his reality TV origins and sort of being the, I don't know, people would, it's almost like church. They would go to church, sit down and watch reality TV, and he would be their preacher. I don't know.
I've heard Sam Harris refers to him in his podcast as the politically incorrect Jesus. Like a guy that's like this, this is the guy that suddenly now has made it okay for the public, for my private views to be public now that the president of the United States is saying these things. And again, it's not on those people for being the way they are. You can only do so much about how they're brought up and their upbringing, and that's where you need more empathy than hatred. And so, that's man. We really got on this train and we rode the rails for the last hour. I mean, I like this. I like this. This is really good. It's not like I like talking politics, and if people don't want to, then I don't. But I understand. It's fascinating to me because in the end, we're all still doing fine. We're all doing great. We're all, like I said, just trying to do our thing. Yeah. But to be able to talk about it and just kind of figure out the world a little bit, I always find I learned something about like what I think. Yeah. When I've said it and I think, oh, I guess I've been thinking that.
Yeah, and it really does boil down to, the quest for why people think what they think. And I mean, voting is a very tangible, well, unless you don't actually know what you're voting for, but if you're an informed voter, it's a very tangible sort of metric for how you view the world and what you value. So I think politics is definitely one of many sort of lenses into who people are, I think. But that's I warned you.
What
politics
else,
can go on forever.
What else were you gonna? I got all day. We could keep going.
Give me a second. I don't even remember how we got into politics, but before that, we were talking about nature. And your boy, what was that dude's name? The
Bjorn Andreas Bull Hansen.
Yeah, that reminded me of sort of another thing. I think you sort of came into this somewhat recently, at least from what I saw. Your I don't know, recommittal to like your bloodline of Norse sort of traditions.
For sure. I definitely think that an important part of who we are is where we come from. Really in a biological sense in a lot of ways, where I was reading up and studying about ancestral eating is something I was looking at, where you can go on diets that are close to what you would have been eating based on like your DNA.
Yeah.
So for like a Norwegian, Scandinavian person like myself, it's fishes and like rye, barley, deer, venison, root vegetables. Not to say that
Sounds
if
like
I
a
go,
nice diet.
yeah,
That sounds awesome.
not to say that if I go eat, a Thai chicken lettuce wrap, I'm gonna die and get cancer. But generally speaking, like if most meals I think that we have throughout the day aren't impressive, exciting ordeals. So it's like trying to turn those into more of like a process that's just for my body rather than like a big event. Where if I can turn those meals into just what I normally should be eating based on my DNA and blood type, maybe that my body will return to some sort of normal version of what it would be existing. So, I know that they take your DNA and they store it in like a mountain or something. I believe that's what they do. But do the ancestry thing sometime like around Black Friday. It's always like $50 versus $100.
Yeah. Okay.
And within a month, they give you, your genetic makeup, and it gets updated as more people do it. And it tells you where you're from, and it shows like here's where your ancestors likely traveled to get you where you are now. And it's just kind of cool knowing that. And I've definitely been getting in touch with that aspect of things. Because it's important, and there's a lot to learn from the lifestyles of your ancestors too. Because like you said, we all need to maybe return to some bit of what it's like to be an actual human.
Yeah.
Like what were they doing?
Yeah.
And that's I like getting in touch with that because everything's so far removed.
Yeah.
These days, and I personally hate the blanket. Like I hate when I go to fill out my demographics for some sort of paperwork and it's just like white. And I'm sure, Black Americans would feel the same because like there's Somalians, there's Egyptians, there's Gold Coast, like there's all sorts of tribes that when you just see black, it's like, it's always the same way I felt about seeing white. It's like, that's like, I'm not just like we're all just not white. We're all different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Like I'm Scandinavian Jewish, like genetically.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a practicing Jewish person, nor do I know much really about the religion. But as someone that has it in their blood, I feel like a certain sort of desire to want to know that and understand that culture because it runs deep. Like it's in me is that culture.
Yeah. I feel like now that I think about it, none of those, fill in the blank boxes are like actual cultures.
Right.
Like saying you're Asian or Pacific Islander or white or black or, Hispanic or Latino, I really need to educate myself on what is the proper term now because I haven't kept up. But, those aren't like, there are so many, that's just such a large blanket that doesn't actually tell you anything about who that person is, I feel like. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, if you call a Polish person a Czech, they're gonna let you know.
Yeah.
Like there's strong sense of nationalism in everyone, really, and like we're American, so it's like I'm not just an American though. I consider myself an Iowan. I'm now a South Dakotan, but I mean that's just a border constructed by us for geopolitical reasons. But if I could, I'd make that known when I was filling in those forms. Like I'd love to see. It's like, oh, what is your biology or not biology? What's your genetics?
Yeah,
like that's who you are as a person. Like white's just such a big, a big word.
Yeah, there is no culture there.
Yeah,
we don't have anything for ourselves. As calling yourself an American, you kind of get a little bit of that, but yeah, I do. Once I heard you sort of getting back into that, ever since then I've sort of been craving doing that myself because I feel like my I don't know, identity is just a white suburban kid and there's nothing to that,
Yeah, well, and it's not to get back into the politics of things again, but it's like when they throw terms around like white guilt or like white people are the problem sort of thing. It's like that's just not true because I mean not to break it down and sound worse, but it's like The things that the Belgians did against people in the Congo are different. I didn't do that. Like, my people didn't do that to enslave and murder millions of people.
Right.
That being said, Norwegians, you know, Vikings went around and enslaved and killed people.
Yeah.
They were not as brutish as they're portrayed. Like, they really were very clean, very well dressed, very pretty civilized people. They did plunder, pillage, and rape in England and Paris and everywhere they went. But just to, I don't know. It's like I like nuance in things because it gives things like tangibility, and it saves you the trouble of generalizations, because the more you deep dive into someone as a person, who they are, you can find more to like, maybe more to hate, maybe more to just be okay with. And so yeah, that's why with the genetics and all that, I've been really getting huge into that, just to have some sense of who I am as a person in exactly what you're saying, in a world where it's like, you're just white, you're just an American, which no one even could tell you what American culture is besides like fast food and sports cars and jazz music.
Yeah.
So, but when you start identifying as like, oh, I'm a American with Norwegian, Germanic heritage, that opens up the doors. So it's like, now I can start making traditional foods of like my culture, and even though I didn't grow up in it, I still feel a strong connection to it, because there's things to learn from the Norwegians and the Danish 500 years ago. There's stuff to learn from that culture now.
What do you think, and this can be anecdotal, just on what you've experienced, but what do you think are like the implications of sort of connecting to that? Have you felt anything practically, like mindset changes or I don't know?
I definitely can make more sense of my connection to nature, for one thing. I always felt, for some reason, when I was growing up, that I had an attachment to like Native American culture, specifically like plains tribes like Lakota and Cheyenne and stuff like that. And so when I was doing my ancestry, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to have some of that blood in me. And that like, because I feel like I understood a little bit more what that meant versus just what we were told in social studies, like, oh, they used all of the bison and they lived in teepees, like that's what they tell you. But it's like there's just more to it than that I just felt. And then I found out I had none of that. Like, I was as Scandinavian, like darkest parts of the world as it could get, pasty boys, and and a little bit at first I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, I feel this connection to nature. Then diving into Norwegian, like specifically Norse mythology, Viking, that pagan, Wicca, all of those sorts of things, like, it's still the exact same fundamental attachment to nature and the exact same lessons to be learned from nature, just in different storytelling. And so when I'm out in the woods, I definitely feel the closest with my ancestry. And the Black Hills actually are very similar geologically to Norway. So to be there, kind of it feels like there's just this feeling that this is what my body wants to be around. Like, this is what me, as like, ego and emotion aside, this is what my human physical gelatinous meat form wants to be in, to feel okay. And so for me, that's part of it. I always tell this to my partner Hannah, but it's like, Vikings had a worship, like, they worshipped their women. Like, they weren't just like raping, pillaging, like sex slave. That happened, but even then, like, they had relationships between their wives and slaves, and they had polyamorous relationships and stuff like that. And so, but they worshipped their women, and like, I do that. I 100% do that. Like, I had to learn over years to make sure I prioritize my own health and well-being in front of the women that I was with. And so I always tell her, like, I was like, hey, I can't help that I spoil you and adore you. It's the Viking in me, like, shit like that. That's definitely one part. Is like, I'm okay with that. It's like the most fulfilling things for me in life are being a musician, being outside, and being a good partner. And that, and so if like I'm doing those three things, like, I'm fine. I'm doing it. And that's another aspect, and she gets a kick out of that.
Do you think? I guess it sounds like the combination of um, sort of living in an environment similar to your ancestors, and it sounds like you've got a pretty good trifecta going right now. Do you think that contributes to what we talked about earlier, sort of like your sense of control and what you're doing and how basically how you're feeling?
Yeah, definitely in one aspect for certain is personal relationships,
Mm.
where the friends I still talk to and see whenever I'm around, those are solid connections that I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about. As far as romantic, I know now for the first time in my life that if something were to happen where I ended up, losing my partner, whatever that meant, I would not freak out in a way that I have previously.
Yeah.
Where, for me, for a while, it was just like that's something that I grew up to think was the right way, was that if you weren't with someone, or like you weren't getting married, or like
Mm-hmm.
going towards getting married, then you were a failure. And that's kind of like, I think, a traditional Midwestern thing that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us grow up in, is that, oh, you need to go get your degree, get a wife, get some kids, have a
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wasn't doing those sorts of things or heading that way, it kind of felt like a failure.
Mm.
And that's when I'd get to these points in my life where it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I'd be ignoring the music and ignoring my own ambitions so much to pay attention to being with a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I know now, I feel for the first time in my life, that if something were to happen, again, the proper grieving process would occur.
Yeah.
But I'm I'm excited to know, when I think about that I would also have the same amount of freedom I have, and actually a little bit more freedom, obviously.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely one thing that's changed. The natural aspect of it being in the area
Mm-hmm.
that feels like a place I should be living in.
Yeah.
And I've got that sense in Iowa too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a certain attachment to this area. Like I love the warm, humid summers. It just
Mm-hmm.
feels earthy. It
Mm-hmm.
feels tangible.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Especially Cedar Falls. Like, this area is a swamp. It really
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Like north of town, especially, it's all marshlands and
Yeah.
wetlands. Like, that just feels like earth.
Yeah.
You can just grab a handful of that.
Yep.
Up northeast, like around Decorah, the Yellow River area,
Yep.
like that's all really hilly, and
Mm-hmm.
there's pine forests and
Yep.
bluffs, and that's another place that I felt kind of attached to my heritage in a lot of ways. Just, that's because a lot of the Norse settlers that were up there, Dvorak and his family lived.
Yeah.
They lived up there in I can't even remember the town right now. Spillville.
Spillville.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like a huge you go through Spillville now, and there's still buildings with Czech writing on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, more European people, that's like, they moved there because that's where they felt was a close match to their homeland.
Yeah.
Too.
And they've maintained their cultural identity, which I think is crazy, because coming from a metropolitan area, no one is, displaying their pride in being a German.
Yeah.
But you go to Decorah and it's like, they're so proud of their Scandinavian heritage.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's cool, is like, it's not pretending at all. It's just, it's
Yeah.
being in touch with where your soil is.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and so it's like, I don't feel the attachment to Arizona, where I was born, at all. Like, I would never live in Arizona. I would never go back. And that's technically where my soil is.
Yeah.
But it runs deeper than that. Like, my family's origins are way up north, way, in the south of the Arctic Circle. And yeah, no, I definitely feel there are places on this earth that I go to that are similar. They have that similar energy.
Yeah.
And it's not something I can explain, and it's not something that I try to really dig too deep into. It's just, I know that this feels right. This is what my human molecules and atoms are vibrating to. If that
I understand,
too yuppie.
but you're kind of scaring me, because I feel the same way, even though I hate the cold. Like, this past week has been, I hate it. It's been below zero like every day until today, or maybe yesterday. And I'm always like, yeah, I'm going to go to grad school in the South somewhere. I'm going to like be super warm, but I can't help but think that like I have to come back to a climate like this. Like, for some reason, even though it causes me no benefit to be cold, and I superficially hate it.
Do you know your heritage?
Primarily German and a bit of English, I think, and tiny bit of Irish. So makes sense. Not quite as far north as yours, but
Do you like the rain?
I do
Yeah,
quite a bit.
that's the English and
Yeah,
Irish in you.
yeah, yeah. I also, yeah, I love. I think I love rain. I got my largest appreciation for rain once I started really gardening, and it's just like it's so nice. One, because you don't have to water as much, and two, I don't know, sort of a connection to life and
Yeah,
to growth. Yeah. I don't know.
I can smell that right now. I can smell the
Yeah.
garden with rain, like
Oh, it's
the
been too long since
earthiness.
it's rained. Wow.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's your own little slice of heaven right there.
Yeah. 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 Hmm.
What what else were we gonna talk about? I
I'm
know
gonna
you
look at my
sent me
cheat
some
sheet here.
things.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, there was something I was gonna ask about during that last conversation. But instead, I want to pick your brain about this is a word you've mentioned several times in our, recent correspondences. Stoicism. Is that something you've been looking into like recently?
I'm trying to because
Yeah.
I'm not a really stoic person.
Yeah.
I definitely think too much about things, and I
Hmm.
can't just do them. And it's good in some senses.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time reflecting, which allows me to address things that need to.
Hmm.
But like I said earlier, it's like you also spend a lot of time thinking about the way you think, and thinking a lot
Yeah.
about the way you think ends up in thinking too much and
Yeah.
cyclical, where
Hmm.
you're just like, where am I getting with this? Like
Yeah.
I know the problem,
Hmm.
I haven't done anything about it. Um, I don't. It's weird. Like I am situationally stoic,
Hmm.
where when things go south, and if something goes wrong, I go into a mode where it's like now is not the time to be emotional. Now
Hmm.
is the time to figure out this scenario.
Yeah.
Um, and that's yeah. It's just it's only happens in those scenarios where I need it. Whereas like in my daily life, I can't just like do things without thinking sometimes. Like
Hmm.
that's I think way too much, and I wish I could practice some stoicism. Like I don't necessarily know how to practice it. I should say,
Hmm.
I'm learning to maybe catch myself in scenarios where I'm overthinking things and analyze it to try and realize and tell myself that it's not getting anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, it's I think the most stoic I get is when I am hiking.
Hmm.
I'm out in nature because there's not too many. I don't know, like the visual and oral. I don't know if you'd call them
Inputs, I
input.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is pretty high. I'm on pretty high alert.
Hmm.
just because I want to see everything. But you're also in the woods, and there's
Yeah.
bears and mountain lions,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm also in that mode. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like I find myself in the woods thinking, if something went bad right now and I died, that would be okay because there's nothing I could do about it, and
Yeah.
I shouldn't worry about it. So things like that is like that's my stoicism is in
Hmm.
a scenario in a scenario
Uh-huh.
where I'm needing to not be emotional and think about things.
Hmm.
That's where it occurs for me.
Yeah.
Have you delved much into stoicism?
Not academically, but I think in general, I mean, people frequently describe me as stoic, and I guess I don't know. We might be getting into semantics, but to me, if I am a stoic, then stoicism means doesn't mean that you're not thinking about something, but rather you're not showing that you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment that you definitely internalize it
Yeah.
all in my experience. If you are thinking about something,
Yeah.
you could be in panic mode inside, but it doesn't affect the way you interact with other people.
Yeah. I could probably count on my hands the number of times anyone has seen me in any sort of, manic episode or something like that.
Well, if that's the measurement of stoicism too, then I'd say I share a similar thing where it's like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna let like I will internally process the situation and decide if it's worth freaking out about on my
Yeah.
own time as to
Yeah.
keep it from being everyone else's problem.
Yeah. I think, at least to me, yeah, Stoicism is less of like acting on your toes. I think there's definitely some of that. Being ready to act on your toes is definitely a part of it, but also just, um, I don't know. Be interesting to look at a definition, but um, it's almost an appearance of sorts, and like collectedness to me. Um,
It always appears to me it's thoughtful and not reactionary. Like
yes,
stoicism
that's yeah.
is is a reflective, thoughtful process that
Mm.
doesn't give in to knee jerk reactions or like all of us have hair triggers on things.
Yeah.
It's like learning to be the master of those.
Mm.
Like, oh, I have a tendency on this aspect to immediately be offended,
Mm-hmm.
and then stoicism might be to sit there and think, why am I offended by this, and is it getting in
Mm-hmm.
the way of me being more thoughtful about
Right.
this?
Yeah, yeah. It's like a mindfulness of being mindful almost.
Yeah,
Sort of just being aware of your thought processes and um, I guess controlling them almost. I think control is probably a pretty good word for being a stoic.
it's definitely about the definitely control does seem like the best overall word for it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it is control of
Mm-hmm.
your scenario, of your mind, of your thoughts. It
Yeah.
is basically, it seems like it is just like another branch of mindful
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
It really, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I keep it's hard to I keep thinking of things that I'd like to pursue further than I pursue one thing and then it's just gone.
I got all day.
Yeah. What was I thinking about? This is where I'm not being a stoic thinking on their toes.
Well, good thing you can always got the power editing.
Yeah, true. What were we talking about like like 90 seconds ago?
Uh,
Being in nature, stoicism, reacting.
being reactionary, emotion, control,
Yeah, I lost it.
not politics.
Yeah. Uh, it's something about if something is actually a good thing to be thinking or doing.
You were talking. Well, no, I'm thinking of having a place to output into the void. I know. We were talking about being. Oh man, everyone watching is at their seat, just like, what were they
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about?
Oh, I
Help
also
us, Rachel.
I just noticed that there's a bit of reverb on these mics.
Yeah, got
Nice.
the studio sound, man.
Yeah.
It's all in
Sick.
the verb.
Yeah. Well, anyways, maybe it'll come back to me. Maybe it won't. Whatever. Um, I do. One thing I did sort of collect in that moment of nothingness was uh, you were mentioning like the well, I put the word in your mouth. The inputs of your surroundings. Um,
Stimuli. That's the word I was
yeah,
looking for.
there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it is. It's interesting how I don't think like the amount of stimulus you get from the natural world is less or more than you do from our, I guess, more civilized world. There's something more like raw about it though that brings me clarity.
I think it's less. I
It's just less. Yeah.
at least in my experience of being in there, because in the world that we live in, you're still walking around
Mm.
in cities,
Mm-hmm.
and what is a building but just a different version of a hill in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have the stimuli of your phone,
Yeah.
of cars, of people yelling,
Mm.
of digital signs,
Yeah.
and so I think you definitely have way less when you're out in the wilderness.
Mm.
And I think when you get those stronger stimuli when you're out in the woods, it's more more noticeable. Really, it stands out. Like seeing a eagle flying around is way more of a exciting, I think, drastic moment for you than seeing an airplane
Yeah.
If you're in a city and you see a plane, you're like, oh, hope it doesn't crash. But when you're out
Yeah.
in the, am I the only one that thinks that when they see a plane? Like every time I see a plane, I'm like, that plane is gonna crash, and I'm gonna watch it crash, and they're gonna interview me on the news or something like that.
No.
I always think that,
No.
and I'm kind of a doom thinker at times, and it's just automatic.
That's what I was gonna say. You were mentioning uh, how when you're in the wild, sometimes you have thoughts of if I was just taken out right now, I'd be okay with it because there's nothing I can do about it. I I've also had those thoughts, which I still don't really know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. Where like after, I guess it's sort of like a grounding mechanism almost of like I'm getting stressed about stuff, or there's a lot of stimulus in the world, and it's not a suicidal thought, but like this could all just end right now, and I have to be okay with that because there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's great. It's a great way to think about things, in my opinion, because, and I thought about this a lot. Now you mention it because, like, all this stuff that we've built up and that we work for matters, and that's why being alive is the exciting thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, without cities and without music and podcasts and without our significant others, without food,
Mm-hmm.
like we wouldn't care to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's because all that stuff is an option that you get to enjoy for
Mm-hmm.
however long you're here. It's way more meaningful. And in the end, though, you need to be okay with the fact that nature doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
what you think about it. Nature doesn't care what you think, what you've built up, where you put all your assets. Nature's gonna do its thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been like a tough process. That's been a tough part of this pandemic for me, is that I wear my mask and I do my part. Every time I'm asked, I don't care. I'll wear a piece of cloth on my face, and if they tell us next year that it didn't do anything, and all I had to do was wear a mask, like so be it.
Yeah.
But on one hand, it's like the measures we are taking to stop a virus in a world that's already overpopulated is just, to me, it's the most unnatural thing I could ever think of. And we're heading towards 9.8 billion people by 2100 is what two of the like top 3 sources for population say.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, people are starving and the resources are spread thin, and we're destroying the planet, and we're at war right now with 7.8 billion. Like, imagine another 2 billion people on the planet, and whether or not COVID was man-made or natural, we'll probably never know. I don't like to think about it too much, but either way, it's like it is a virus doing what it's intended to do, and that's kill off weaker people, like every single virus does.
Yep.
And so, while on one hand, I don't want to die from it, and like I would be really mad if I died. I'd be pretty upset if I died. But again, overall, nature doesn't care what I think. Nature doesn't think if I think I should stay alive through a pandemic or not. And I don't know. It's like it's tough because we can. I don't know. It's like the economic destruction from having a bunch of people die versus the economic destruction of closing everything down, but only doing like half measures everywhere. I don't know. It's just like I've gone back and forth so many times.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, that was the big thing when this all first broke out, was like it's killing elderly and how do they describe it? Elderly
Immunocompromised.
and immunocompromised people. It's like, but that's what they all do every year. All like around the clock, people get the flu, and it sounds really like unsympathetic and selfish, but it's like, I don't know. It's either you're selfish for not wearing a mask and doing your own thing and you give it to people, or you're selfish for thinking that we, for some reason, deserve to be better than the natural process of a disease. I don't know. So like I'm so on the fence with both things that it's hard to pick a side because like I understand, like I have this connection with nature where it's like, if this virus takes me out, I would be pretty upset on my dying bed, but when I'm gone, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Like nature doesn't care. But at the same time, I also don't want to spread this thing around and get grandma and grandpa sick.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know where to think on it, man. I
Yeah.
really don't.
I'm interested what you think on, I guess, humanity's role, humanity and nature's relationship.
It kind of ties back into that whole sense that we still think for some reason that we're above all the mechanisms of nature that exist that are fundamental, like, disease, natural disasters, climate change. Like, those are all things that aren't going anywhere. We will never have control on those, and we shouldn't either. Because it's like we've spent all this time trying to tame nature, and we have in a lot of ways. Like, we've made vaccines, like polio's gone. We're starting to kill off mosquitoes, which is not good. I'm so weirded out by that
Yeah,
that we're
that's
trying to kill off the mosquito population, as if that's not going to just destroy the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Um,
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, no, there's like down in Florida, they're trying to genetically modify mosquitoes so that when they reproduce with other mosquitoes, these mosquitoes will die off. And
Wow.
that's just like a sick madman's idea of an experiment, because
That's eugenic genocide.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And it's like, how many things? Yeah, sure, mosquitoes kill X amount of people a year with Zika and malaria, but it's like, how many bats are going to die, followed by the things that eat bats, followed by the things that eat those things. So yeah, I feel like we spend a lot of time in the relationship trying to control. It's a very controlling, abusive relationship, like,
Yeah.
where we are trying to control Mother Nature, and no one stops to ask why.
Yeah. I think
Is that a line from Jurassic Park? Like, they were so busy
probably.
trying to figure out if they could do it that they never stopped to ask, should we?
Yes.
It's something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's with that relationship that's so messed up to me. It's like it's good that people aren't getting polio, and it's good that we are stopping hurricanes from being as devastating, but in the end that's nature's way of letting us live, because it takes out certain just, I don't know, it's just a natural culling of the herd that doesn't care who you are. Nature doesn't care what your ideology is. It doesn't care your politics. Yeah. It's really the most loving of all creatures, Mother Nature.
Yeah, or at least the most egalitarian.
Yeah. It doesn't discriminate when it kills. It's just like, sorry, you all gotta go so that others may live, or so that the birds can have their land back. I don't know. That's my relationship.
I think some would argue that our role, if our civilization is to, progress further, would be to dominate it and to, leave. So I think ultimately the reason we are, I guess we're kind of disobeying nature. We're saying, no, we don't want this virus to wipe out any portion of our population, which, by the way, going halfsies and having, minor regulations, and we're kind of trying to regulate it. We're kind of just letting it ravage our population. I don't think that's the way to go. But,
right.
Whatever. I think ultimately the reason we would want to keep our population rather than allow it to deal with our overpopulation on our current planet is because the next step, I think, for us is it might be AI development, but it's also leaving the planet and
right,
getting farther. So
I sure hope when we do, we leave it in a pretty good position so that it can take itself back.
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's all gonna be chrome.
I think we're gonna use and abuse it.
Everything's chrome in the future.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
Yeah, as far as those half measures things that we're talking about, it's like that's a whole nother political discussion. But it is just weird that we're gonna look back at photos of people wearing masks in a full restaurant and stuff like that, and just realize, like, we never stood a chance at this, and the chance we had, we blew right away. And a bunch of people ended up making a whole lot of money off of that. And I hope that it doesn't become the new norm for viruses, because the virus is, it's doing what every virus does, doing its job, and we've never seen something reacted to like this.
Yeah.
Like swine flu, bird flu, all those things that came through when we were, H1N1.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the name for swine flu?
Yes. Yeah.
Or swine flu was the layman's term. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When that came through, it's like I remember the panic, and then it went away, and it's, at least, it stopped spreading the way it was, and then you don't hear from it again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was doing the exact same thing, and I don't remember even missing a day of school.
Yeah, we
that.
missed one. I think a kid at our school had it, so we missed a day. But
Yeah. So yeah, that's yeah. My relationship with nature, I think, is healthier than my relationship with people,
mm-hmm.
because egos and selfishness is the thing that keeps us alive in our world,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes us terrible at dealing with the natural world.
Yeah. Gumper said technology has a way of throwing off nature's way of maintaining equilibrium.
Yeah.
I think that is, very evident.
Again, it's just like, yeah, we have the technology to do it, but why? Why are we doing it?
Yeah.
That's my question about all of it.
I think
It's it's like it's the selfishness that I've seen people saying, like, with COVID, for example. It's like, if you don't wear a mask and you go out and you have shows, you're selfish. But on the flip side of the coin, it's like you think that you are above just the natural order of the world that we live in. Like, I don't know, that's particularly something that I disagree with Sam Harris on a lot of his stuff. Like, he's, he wants to see people punished for all this and whatnot. But it's like, I don't know, it's like, you got to have some reality based in the natural world, and just like, these are things that just have existed and will always exist.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's weird that we haven't accepted that. Like, that's pretty progressive to me, and like, we're going towards a progressive world. That's pretty progressive, to admit that you can die and that's just okay, because that's for others to live. I don't know, it's not a popular opinion right now, so
No, I would definitely say so.
I'm pretty careful who I talk to about it as I release it on Twitch live to anyone who wants to see.
Yeah. To our 2 viewers at the moment. But I just I lost my train of thought again. Something about this whole like evolution. Oh, about the whole, rich getting richer because of COVID, like a lot richer. I don't know why I've this past week or two has been about finding silver linings in really horrible things. Or I guess I'm just playing devil's advocate with myself. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, the two who reaped the most from this thing. Also the two probably most viable pioneers of space travel.
Mm-hmm.
That is my only silver lining from this, is the hope that they use their resources to improve the quality of life, or at least further our civilization somehow. I hope that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Zuckerberg him and his wife have pledged to give 90% of their wealth away before they die, which is huge. And what we need to do is incentivize that activity amongst millionaires, where it's like, you giving away your wealth for the benefit of humankind. We will give you a tax break, and we will make sure that it's worth your while to help other people. And like for example, Mark Zuckerberg last year donated $750 million to San Francisco area hospitals.
Wow. And
the board of supervisors, they refused to let him put his name on that hospital because of the unpopularity of him as the guy that made Facebook. And definitely it was a little bit of a cancel culture thing, where it's like, if you're not even going to allow that person to put their name on it after they give you the single largest public donation or private donation, it's the largest private donation ever given to a hospital, and they're like, well, you're Mark Zuckerberg, you're evil, so we're not going to let you put that on it. You're ruining the planet with your face paste. And So that's the kind of thing that can't exist if we are going to ever work with wealthy people.
Yeah.
And to inherently hate billionaires and millionaires for what they do, for just the money they have, is also not the way to go. And I used to be that way. I
Yeah.
always have been. But if you just make doing good attractive to people,
Right.
then they will do it. Like it's not bad that humans need to be incentivized. I don't think it's a bad thing inherently, because why would you do anything ever if it didn't help you in some way? Even like
Yeah.
charity, it makes you feel good, which
Right.
is doing something for you.
Right.
So treating them in that way, where it's like we need to incentivize doing well so that we can close the wealth gap, is the way to go about it, rather than being like, let's punish them for being wealthy.
Yeah. Eat the rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I hope that. Well, no, I do think that this sort of ties into everything we've been talking about, back to conservatives in the echo chamber of Fox News, and wealthy people making a ton of money off of a global crisis. I do think people always do what they think is best, whether that's for themselves or for others or for their race, as in human race. I don't know, but I don't know. Where do you stand on that take?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, people are more similar to you and me than the Fox CNNs of the world want us to think. And they're both doing the same job, Fox and CNN, just spinning it in a different way. But the majority of people aren't going to come up to you on the street and attack you like they would on Facebook. The majority of people are actually going to be pretty nice and pleasant. Like,
Yeah.
when how many times a year do you have a negative experience with someone, and how many times a year is it just because that person was just a mean, evil person? Seldom, really. There, it happens, and there are evil people, and there are people that really would be better off in a ditch, but that's even few and far between. And most of those people are working at CNN and Fox.
Yeah.
I think we should throw them all in a hole along with lawyers.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that if you treat everyone that you meet like that, where they are all just trying to do their best, that's the best way to go through your life. Because I don't know, if you don't trust people too much, I feel like is worse, or is better than not trusting people at all.
Yeah.
Because there's more reasons, I think, to trust people than there is to not.
I would agree.
And it's all about just knowing what you can take and what you're going to deal with as an individual of behavior, like the kind of treatment you're going to get. You kind of got to decide how much is enough, and on what things you'll fight for and what things you won't.
Yeah.
And some of my best friends are conservative people. They're sensible, or at least the things that they think that I disagree with, I know why they think that.
Yeah.
And that is, that's one of the better ways to go about things, and give people a benefit of the doubt. Like I listen to, everyone gives Tommy Lahren a bad rep. Tommy Lahren's actually from Rapid City, South Dakota, where I live now. But I listened to, she was on Theo Vaughn's podcast this past weekend. I listened to that episode a couple weeks ago, and she's not a crazy, radical, conservative, like talking head. She's shares similar opinions to me in a lot of ways, and like she's not pro-life. She's not like anti-gun. She's just like anti-government things.
Yeah.
And I never would have known that if I had just listened to the little clips of her saying something crazy, which does happen.
Screenshots of her, more radical tweets.
Yeah. And it's like, people do say that. You got to just realize, though, it's how much of it is truth and how much of it is like a different spin on something that maybe got interpreted wrong.
Yeah.
And we all just need to be more critical of our, not really the other side of things so much, like whatever you identify. You need to be more critical of yourself and of the people on your side, because that's how that's how you make a change, is by telling the people that are with you how to do their job better. and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so, no, that's definitely my opinion on it, is that people are inherently good until you stop trusting them.
Hmm.
Man, that's a bad way to summarize that, but
No,
people can replay this to get what I meant.
yeah. Do you think material wealth and greed has any what am I asking here? People A lot of people, back to sort of the eat the rich thing. Do you think a person like, we could use Donald Trump as an example. Do you think if he was born into the family he was born into and did not inherit any of the wealth but was still brought up in that circumstance, obviously he's not born inherently evil. I don't have that opinion. Do you think he would have come out the same? I don't know. This is kind of an odd thought experiment.
Well, I think there's more to play with Donald Trump as a person
Hmm.
than just
Yeah, I
his
suppose.
upbringing. I feel
Yeah,
like there's some undiagnosed mental conditions.
yeah, and probably some daddy issues.
Yeah, I feel there's more to it than just that he was given a lot of money as a young man.
Yeah,
That there's a whole lot more to dig
Yeah.
up in that. But I think anyone put in those different positions can be in a different outcome. I don't know, like Warren Buffett's a very generous, charitable man, and he kind of had. Well, actually, he built up from scratch. He was
Right.
a nothing to rags to riches tale.
yeah,
The majority of wealth in the world that's owned by people is inherited.
right.
So there's definitely a certain aspect that I think those people would be lacking, but it's not unteachable at all. It's like I'm saying, it's just how do people get rich? By being incentivized.
Yeah,
So you can teach rich people that aren't charitable and concerned with our well-being. You can teach people like that by showing them that it can be incentivized, which is
Yeah.
kind of what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So give people the benefit of the doubt and the chance to learn something and show them the benefits of it, and I think they'll learn anything. Which is why I for example, with like reaching across the aisle, if you have that conversation and realize why people think the way they do, why conservative radical nationalists want to get mobilized and storm the Capitol, or why Black Lives Matter radicals are attacking someone for just not even doing anything at all.
right.
Once you understand those people and where they're coming from and incentivize, show them the benefits of doing it a different way.
Yeah,
It's no different than being like in a lesson with your instructor in music school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think I got this figured out and I like doing it this way. And then they
Yeah.
just show you, well, here, if you do it this way, this is what it'll look like. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, I never would have thought about that. It's that sort of, it's teaching. It's all teaching. And you can teach something and learn something from everyone you run into. That's an important lesson. My dear best, friend Abe
yeah,
taught me a long time ago. Was like, sometimes you got to sit down and write out where you learned something from someone, even if it's ended badly, or you had a bad experience with them. Like, you learned something from everyone.
yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely a valuable sort of realization. At least it was for me when I realized that even if something didn't pan out positively for me, there's something to take from it. And I guess that's that's almost like a Disney movie lesson. Like, you should learn that pretty young, but I feel like that's not always the case. Like, there's a sort of like, there's a hearing it and then there's a really seeing it come into play. That I don't know that I really grasped that until the last couple of years, maybe. But yeah, I think that's a really valuable thing. Audio could be louder.
Oh, well. Let's see.
Hello.
Howdy.
Is that any better?
Howdy. Is that Gumper?
Yeah, it is.
Good old IT Gump.
Oh, Jose also said that. More, Reed says. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Can also get closer. Yeah, that's definitely better.
Yeah,
Cool.
there we go. Cool.
All right. Reed also said if you save a little less than $500 a month every month, you'll have $1 million in 30 years, which is rich. Yeah,
Get a mutual fund.
yeah,
That's what I do. It's $250 automatically gets withdrawn into this fund, and within a couple years, or within like 25, 30 years, it'll be about 400, 500,000.
hmm,
And you don't have to think about it. It's just like utilities and bills.
yeah,
It kind of feels like an adult thing too. So you're like,
yeah,
oh, I'm an adult now. I got a mutual fund.
yeah. It also requires someone to tell you to get a mutual fund. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, yeah. Now I'm set. I'm set for
You
life.
got it.
And so are these 5 people. But
Matt Henson at Northwestern Mutual here in town is my agent. He's super cool to work with on it, and that was one of the best things I decided to do because it was kind of scary. I'm like, oh, you mean like I'm gonna lock in money into these funds pretty much for the rest of my life?
yeah,
He's like, yeah, you got it.
yeah,
And then, which it's kind of scary, but it'll pay off. I won't necessarily have to worry about Social Security or nothing like that. Hopefully, I mean, we all want to be rich musicians by then. So
Yeah.
if that pays off, we won't have to worry about the mutual fund.
yeah,
But that goes.
yeah. I think there are sort of socioeconomical and educational implications there because it's easy for people who have a degree and are making a salary to say, yeah, just save $500 a month. It's easy. And to be honest, yeah, you could be working an hourly job, not at minimum wage. You couldn't do it if you were doing
Right.
that. It's possible if you have a decent job to do that, but it takes knowing that it's worth it, and not everyone is instilled that.
Right.
You know.
Well, and then I'll tell you from one thing from my college experience, we could all find the money for things like that.
Yeah.
That's I remember going through a phase, or multiple times where it's like, oh, I could never afford something like that, and then you look at your spending, and you're like, well, if I'm spending $70 a week on PBR times 12 months,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, good old college.
Yeah. Let me get my cheat sheet back out again.
For me, it was gas station stops and just, getting this couple slices of pizza in addition with your gas. It's like, oh, I can't pay rent this month on time, but I was able to eat Casey's Pizza. Every
Yeah,
day.
or a Quick Star tornado,
Star,
or yeah, Quick Star's dangerous.
It's only $1. That's not that much. That's pretty much free.
Yeah,
And then you buy 100 a month.
yeah, yeah. I've stopped stopping there. If I get gas, I try and stay in my car if I can. It's really like half gallon of milk that I always buy. That's what gets me, is the milk. But yeah, I mean that's I think that's I got through every little bullet point that I wanted to make a point of talking about. Anything else pique your mind lately?
Man, we really didn't talk about music at all, did we?
Nah, do you want to? Oh, actually, yeah.
I was just saying, I was like, that's good. It's fine. It's just
When you're talking about like really education is just teaching is learning ways to do things differently that are more efficient, basically. And that occurred last night. I had a horn lesson last night. I have them at like 8 p.m. because my professor's in Taiwan. But yeah, we had a sort of like you should be working on it this way, and it'll just make it easier, and you'll learn it a lot faster. And at that point, I was like, yes, that's true, but also, what am I doing? What is this like? What is the purpose of all of this that I'm doing? I'm just playing an instrument by myself in a practice room, talking to a screen, which there's a really great person on the other side, but nonetheless, like, that was sort of a moment of like breaking the matrix, like none of this actually has any worth. Have you ever felt that when you're practicing or performing?
pretty much every other month of my college experience.
Yeah.
Which anyone that knows my time in college, I went through my ups and downs, and I feel like everyone went through those, and I just made them a little bit more known. No, definitely. I had those feelings all the time where it's, I'm doing this thing that comes from my brain and doesn't generate a product for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely went through those phases where I was like, I want to go back to school for something actually useful,
Mm-hmm.
which is good if like that's all you care about. I should say that my music experience, music college, really was all about figuring out those sorts of things, like what is the worth on this.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've become more part of the outside post-college world, if you
Mm-hmm.
will,
Mm-hmm.
you find
Adult life.
yeah, I hated that when every time people would say, "Wait till you get out into the real world."
Yeah.
It's like I've been paying bills since I
Yeah.
was 14.
Yeah.
I've been in the real world.
Yeah.
I've been taxed since I got a job at Fairway Grocery.
Yeah.
I hated that. Be like, "Wait till you get out in the real world." It's like this. The whole world is real always, 100%.
Mhm.
Like that, you're just in it.
Yeah.
But I just remember that experience of trying to figure out why it was worth it, and then going out after I graduated and to the workforce, where most people aren't trying to do anything with their lives.
Mhm.
They're trying. Well, they are, but they're not doing anything to do it. And
Yeah.
it's just like people complaining about how things are going, like, oh, I hate my wife, or this. I wish the boss would give me a raise after 15 years working this job.
Oh God.
Yeah, and some of that can always be written off as just work banter, and like they secretly love it. That can,
Yeah.
stuff like that happens,
You,
but
you always find a problem to talk about.
for sure.
Yeah.
But school, university, there's no environment on earth like it,
Mhm.
and I really miss it in a lot of senses because there's nothing like being surrounded by thousands of people that are all trying to do something with their lives,
Mm.
and that's motivating in itself to want to do something that because you want to do it and you want to make something of it. And I did not get that experience after I left college.
Yeah.
And I was pretty deprived of that for a long time, and I still am in a lot of ways. Like I get super excited whenever I come back to Cedar Falls,
Mhm.
just to be around that environment. Like you go to Sidecar Coffee, and everyone in there is doing a meeting or they're on their computer.
Yeah,
Like they're all.
yeah.
It's literally an office space that serves food and coffee,
Mhm.
and just being surrounded by that excitement
Mhm.
is something that I have not experienced since.
Mhm.
I've experienced other things that are highlights for me
Mhm.
since college. Like I've played for an audience of 3,500 people before,
Mm.
and like that was a new highlight for me, and,
Mhm.
and opening up for big touring bands, and like that's an excitement in itself. Where it's like, okay, like I now have the skills to make this happen normally for me,
Mhm.
and I have control over my life,
Mhm.
like we were saying earlier. But at the same time, you don't have that certain sort of chaos energy that exists at a college.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of unknown still
Yeah.
here, but excited unknown.
it's unknown, and also there's a whole lot of like innocence to it.
Mhm.
Like it's kind of not sheltered place per se, but it definitely feels like its own world that's separate from the outside world in a lot of ways, because
Yeah.
you're so in it when you're in it that you don't see how the wheels turn outside of it.
Yeah.
And when you go out into the real world
Mm-hmm.
workforce, and you realize it's just a lot of people doing the same thing in just different ways,
Mhm.
it makes you really want to get back into that environment
Yeah.
of productivity. That's what it
Mhm.
is. College is just a factory of productivity, and you're always meeting people that are trying to do something.
Yeah.
And you meet so many people that are more open and they're more open and upfront about what it is that they do. That's good.
Yeah.
Versus like you run into people outside, and they're just like, "Oh, I work here,
Mhm.
and then I go home."
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the workforce feels like.
Hmm.
You have to really dig deep to get people to talk about the things that they really do want to do,
Mhm.
and then it's just sad because like, well, why are you doing this thing that you hate doing?
Yeah.
But
For
you're so
for
good at
40
that.
at least 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just like that's not, again, for me. That's the thing too. It's like that's not what we're supposed to do with our lives. And I think once I started spending more time in nature and realizing that all of this it does matter. I don't want to say it does matter, but it's like that you could die tomorrow. You could die tonight. I could walk out the door and the tree branch falls and just kills me on your front yard. And that kind of makes it more important that you are doing the things that you want. Because if we have this desire to want things that no other creature has, why the hell would you ignore that your whole life? I don't know. I've seen enough people around in my life that are in a place that I don't want to be when I'm older. And I feel the youngest I've ever felt because of that. Like I definitely think I looked and felt older in college. Towards like the middle end part of college, when I was feeling like that same way, where I was going through a phase like, why am I doing this? Doesn't matter. Like, this doesn't help anyone. And that whole tangible aspect of doing music, you can't weigh too much into that. That being said, the one thing that college doesn't stress enough, I think, is that you also are trying to make a paycheck. So we all like the emotion, the creativity, the experimentation of music for college, and that's what college is for. That's what it should be for. But at the end of the day, you still got to make money. Because like nature doesn't care about you living or dying, the IRS doesn't care that you didn't make enough money to pay your bills and your taxes. So you got to throw some of the personal attachment of music behind a lot. And realize you're going to be doing some gigs that you hate for the money, and you need to learn how to market yourself on social media. You need to learn how to write cold emails to venues and to people that make it sound like you know half of what you're doing. Everyone makes a website when they're starting to go to grad school and then doesn't use it. You need to use your website. And if you don't have a reason to use it either, then you probably shouldn't have one. If it's just for your resume, I think you're missing the point. But yeah, you also got to be a business person, and it's not all just about the creativity and the history of music, which is fascinating and fun, but you got to make it interesting for people that didn't go to music school too. And that's what we spend a lot of time in music school, is like, I want to make this interesting for everyone I went to school with. Like, I'm going to do giant steps but in 7. And everyone's like, "Oh, what?" But if you go out into the real world, they want to hear "Fishing in the Dark" by the Nitty Gritty String Band. So
I'm sort of for a while I was sort of excited to get out of this world of aspirations and like excitement around what comes next, because it does like get a bit exhausting. And I also still don't know exactly what I want to do. So I was kind of excited to get into monotony and also have a salary, or, have money.
For sure.
But I don't know. Part of me now is like not ready to leave academia for those reasons, because I don't want to be being around like-minded and like driven people who aren't getting the life sucked out of them by a 9-to-5 is like I think, like you said, production feels good. I think humans need productivity to like make their life worthwhile. And I'm kind of scared to leave that almost, because that means more of the like a more weight of motivation is going to fall on me rather than being inspired by others.
You definitely have to become your own project manager. For sure, because out in the world, there's not as many opportunities as you will find packed into a college. I should say there are, but they're very different. It's not just handed to you in the way it was.
Your professor emails you a gig.
Exactly. It goes from being less about how good you are at your instrument, and how creative and knowledgeable you are. Well, I shouldn't say that. It goes less about the creativity and more in the direction of, can you help us generate money, or can you make money? depending on what kind of gigging you're doing. Obviously there's certain things like orchestral gigging. Like if you want to be a full-time orchestral player, your track record, your college education is a big plus. And you know that I think falls within the academic world. So if you're staying in the academic world, keep doing what you're doing because academic world feeds itself.
Yeah.
But anything outside of that, like you can be as qualified as you want and be as knowledgeable as you want. But if you show up to the gig and you weren't prepared, that's the last time you're getting that call. Or if you show up and start playing pieces you find interesting, and no one else does, and the crowd leaves, you're probably not going to get called back for that venue too. So it's all about finding the aspect in your life where you want to be real creative and academic. And for me, it's playing in symphonies. And that's almost like it's a job because I'm a full-time musician, but it's a hobby as well, where I don't feel the pressure like I do with like my own projects, where I'm on around the clock trying to market myself and trying to sell things and really make money. Like it's not as depressing as it sounds either when it's like I'm trying to make money as a musician. That's been like a weird taboo when you're in school. It often seems, but I mean,
no, it's definitely promoted that money comes second and you should keep the integrity of art music at all costs,
Yeah, and it sounds depressing to say that you need to care about the money as equal, but it's you have to cover that base before you get to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I had something a big point I was going to say on it. I'm trying to recall, but in the end, it's like you can also make really good money.
Yeah.
And still be creative and do your thing. Like I said, it's like the majority of my money comes from touring country band and then my own solo shows. But then I also get a little bit from orchestras where I get to go play Dvorak and Mussorgsky and Bach, and then I go play Fishing in the Dark and Chris Stapleton, play some Eagles, and it's fun. I love both of it. Because with the country band, I just show up, I play the bass, I do my part as best as I can every single time, and then we get on the road and we leave, do the next one, and just do the same thing over and over. It's really like a job, which starts to make you feel like that feeling when you're like, what is it all worth it? Like, I don't get the respect as a musician. You start to feel like a job. That's the same as like a lawyer feels, where it's like, I'm doing this and getting X amount of money to do it because I do it well.
Yeah.
So like it was all worth it.
Yeah.
It's definitely the sentiment I get out of it.
Yeah. That's sort of been one of the things motivating me through, getting through like senioritis and just the monotony of a fifth year. I'm sure you've felt it. Is that really I'm doing the same thing a business major is doing, but for some reason I just have more emotional investment in what's going to be paying my bills.
Right. Well, and it's different. The music degree is different in a lot of ways because from the moment that you get into music school, you're already in the job market.
Yeah.
Versus business majors, like a business major, for example, you're working towards getting into the job market in a lot of ways. Like you'll do internships. Same was when I did my poli-sci degree is the same thing where it's like you're working towards a job, you're working towards an internship, versus like when you show up and there's a jam at the Octopus, or someone asks you to fill in for them at the Cup, like that's your internship, and you may be a freshman. Or you get a call from someone that needs a bassist. Like I did this one gig with it was a Latin gig, and I was a junior, and I was like, oh, I can do this. Like I look at the music, this is easy, I'll figure it out. And I didn't listen to the reference recordings before, which was so dumb because true Latin music is all a cue based thing. So like I just had to follow along, and whenever they'd cue it, go to the next part, and I couldn't hang. I couldn't keep up. It was the energy was just so crazy and different and exciting. And I'm just this honky trying to keep up, and I definitely made a fool of myself on that gig. And it's definitely you're showing how good you are at your job from the get-go. Yeah. Which is very different than most other majors.
There's no like incubation phase.
Yeah.
You just gotta you're in it. Yeah.
I think it's good after college too, especially with the music degree, to take some time to just not do it.
Mm.
Like when I moved to South Dakota right after I finished, I was playing my bass every day, and I was trying to make it a habit of it. And then I had this period between pretty much March and June where I just didn't touch it at all, and I only spent my time going outside
Mm.
and hiking, and I was into some theater and stuff like that, just like trying
Mm-hmm.
different things that were different muscles of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so rewarding to come back to playing music,
Mm.
to 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 realize the things I missed
Mm-hmm.
and focus on those, because like,
Yeah.
all right, that's where your passions lie because you missed them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's super important to just like put your instrument physically down for a
Mm.
little bit and just remember that you're still a human that has other things they like doing.
Yeah.
After 4 or 5 years of focusing only on one thing, that takes
Yeah.
a whole lot of brain power.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. I think that's a pretty big contributing factor in why I feel so good about this semester. Is normally during breaks I take a pretty extensive break from horn, but we had a super long one, and also normally when I take a break from horn, I feel guilty because, like, I don't know, we're trained that you don't take days off. You like the regression is like severe. It's a grave sin to take, a week off. But I did take like a month at least off, and I came back, and yeah, you're right. You realize that there is something that is just good about doing it. Like you remember the reasons why you do it, and that's like the breaking the monotony is definitely a huge thing
Well, I
for
could
that.
recall playing some of the best strides I've made in my bass playing were after like 2.5, 3 weeks of not playing at all,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of have to revert back to fundamental stuff,
Yeah.
and you focus more on it than you do
Uh-huh.
when you kind of get used to just trying to learn things
Yeah.
and not focus on the technique.
Yeah.
So no, I definitely think there's a huge advantage to taking time off
Mm-hmm.
from your instrument, because you can't just batter your brain with things till it gets better. You have to
Yeah.
let it ferment and sit
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. My tendency is definitely badder. I feel like a lot of musicians probably are. They were definitely encouraged to just grind.
Oh well, I mean, we all did it our early years of college, where you
Uh-huh.
would stay awake till 2 a.m.
Oh yeah,
in
at least.
Russell. You're like, oh, since I'm up till 2 a.m., I'm dedicated, and I'm putting in the hours.
Yep.
And then you go to play it the next day, and you didn't learn a single thing from
Yeah.
your practice after 12.
Yep.
Because your brain just can't function.
Yep.
I think it was Ryan Garmo taught me an important lesson, that just to not do anything important after 9.
Mm.
Like, everything important needs to be done in the prime hours of being awake, and
Mm.
everything after 9 is not going to significantly help.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. I definitely learned that the hard way. I wish Karma told me that, but yeah. Um, well, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Man, I don't, unless you got something, any preliminary questions or follow-ups, now that we've gone down the rabbit hole for a good couple hours now.
Yeah. I don't know.
You got any ad reads yet?
Ad reads,
Me
not quite.
undies.
No, the only thing is you promoting yourself.
Me undies. I always hear those ads. It's that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Postmates always comes up in
Uh-huh.
different podcasts. That's the next step. You got to get sponsored by Pablo's.
Oh, yeah, I would love that. Oh my gosh, they could provide just all I need is 2 quesadillas a week. My
That-
guest and I can feast.
That's ample payment.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Have a little Pablo's sign in the background.
Yeah.
Just
Oh.
marketing. They would totally be down for that. Local shops. Pablo's is like the chill, down for anything kid of Cedar Falls when it comes to businesses.
Yeah.
They would totally do it. Be like,
Yeah.
whatever, man, let's do it.
Yeah. Gumper asks how you write lyrics or find ideas for song concepts.
Man, they happen, and I try and record them with my voice recorder on my phone,
Mm.
or I try and immediately track them in GarageBand, because I use GarageBand for demos because it's super streamlined, and then I do my serious recording in Pro Tools. But I use GarageBand. I try and just track down everything I can think of, because for me, everything happens at once. It's when I come up with the lyrics, I have the guitar parts, bass parts, drums, background vocals. It's all in my head at once, and it's chaos. So I try and get it out as quickly as possible, so I don't have to think about it anymore. In terms of lyrics, I don't know. I write things down, and then I try and sit there and I think, is there a more poetic way to say this? That being said, simplicity for me is key. Like, listen to a lot of Chris Stapleton. His lyrics are incredibly just straightforward and simple, but it's how he delivers them that provides a lot of power and a lot of emotion. So I sit there and I think, it's like, is this A, overthinking it, or B, is there a better way to say it that's less, like say like, I love you so much, and then you try and think in your head like, what would be a good way to say it, like, like I miss you when the sun goes down, something like that conveys the same feeling.
Flowery, that is a nice. I like the puzzle of language, like trying to put things together in the most efficient but also, clear and specific way. It's kind of a fun game I've come to enjoy.
I like to Yoda it up a little bit and try and make the point come at the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes just to see, it's like, how
Make
can
them
you
wait.
phrase something. It's like, I love you so much, or it's like, I can't breathe when I don't see you. It's like, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I get the idea behind that. One's just foo-foo, and one's like a little bit more concerning, you could say.
It evokes a more specific feeling.
Yeah. That's why I love country music, because you can say a whole lot in not a lot of words, or you can say nothing with a whole lot of words too, and you just find which one you're better at, and which one's more. I don't know, because like, I hate wordy music. I really do. Like, I hate that I think of this guy every time, but Connor Oberst is a songwriter that I cannot stand his music, because it's just like, I don't even know what he's trying to say by the end of the phrase, because it's just like, she's at the gas station, her hair is Mercedes red, and she dwells on the man that drinks Sprite. Stuff like that. Like, that's definitely the worst representation of his music.
Yeah.
And then I hope people go and listen to him, because I sucked so bad at that description. It was just like,
Connor who?
Connor Oberst.
Oberst. Okay, I haven't heard of him.
Yeah, I just, that's just one that comes to mind. I just hate really wordy, like, too cryptic for me, and that's just my personal preference. Because I've always just been a straight to the point kind of guy. Like, I don't, like, I just want to say what I gotta say, and then get on with it.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, it's sort of like situational, because I do love, like, diving into just a thick album, like an album full of, like, allegory and metaphors, but that's not an album I can listen to all the time. Like, that's something I have to actively listen to. Same with hip hop usually, like legit, poetic hip hop. I can't just, like, listen to it for enjoyment. It's like, I have to read it like I would a piece of literature.
Right.
Yeah. Which isn't what I always want to do.
I save the real high intellectual part of my brain for, like, classical music and like, especially like symphonies, because for me, like, that's a really taxing experience listening to a symphony, because my brain is just on fire. I don't know if you've seen the movie Soul yet.
Oh yeah.
That's the zone. That's what I'm feeling when I'm listening to symphonies. It's just like swirling and all that sort of, like, and analysis is like, oh, this makes, like, I love Dvorak because I picture Bohemia when I'm listening to it, like 1890s Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic. That area is like, oh, I'm like, I can taste the room temperature Pilsner that he would be drinking while he was writing this.
Yeah.
Or
And
I can smell his pipe tobacco sitting out by the river in Spillville.
Right. That's the biggest thing for me, is, like, especially that connection is, like, I literally I've seen the house where he was writing this. Like, to a certain extent, I am familiar with this experience and like this context.
Yeah.
It's a very, like, it's hard to place what exactly that is, but
It's for me, it's like it's ethereal, where it's like,
mm,
I remember reading about when I was doing some writing on Dvorak, when he was writing in Spillville, and part of his daily routine was to walk along the river, and I cannot remember for the life of me the river. I want to say it was the Skunk River,
mm,
but he'd walk along that every single day, and I'm thinking like a guy in a wool suit in the
mm-hmm,
1890s in
mm.
the humid morning Iowa air.
Cigar or pipe,
Yeah, and he
something.
smoked a pipe, and they have it on display there.
Oh,
And he also played the pump organ in the church, and it
mm,
would get kind of like not out of hand, but people would would be insanely excited that the master, as they called him, was showing up to play the organ.
mm,
And like I'm picturing that time where I definitely do understand where people think about the greater times or like how things used to be,
yeah,
because like although we didn't know much about the world, and genocides could go on and you wouldn't have any idea that they were
yeah,
going on,
yeah,
you also weren't necessarily taxed with that information either. Like all you knew was going to church with your fellow Czechs,
mm-hmm,
and this world renowned composer that's played in London and been around the world
mm-hmm,
is playing pump organ in your church.
yeah,
And you truly believe that that's like the height of your world. There's no cell phones. There's no one's.
so much less to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I do. That's where it for me, it transports me to a time where I don't have to be in the 21st century,
mm,
or I could be in the 21st century and not surrounded by the things that bother me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost the same as like connecting to ancestry or to nature. It's just like it's an escape
Yeah.
of current circumstances.
And I feel like I was thinking about this a lot, and of course I think about this when I'm in Cedar Falls,
Mm-hmm.
but like I am a hound for nostalgia. Like
Me too.
my whole life is, it feels like oftentimes is either like trying to relive experiences by replicating them in my current life, or just dwelling on those histories that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be bad when you're just looking at it through the rose tinted glasses and you're like, things were way better back then, man. Like, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
But if you use it to find out the things you liked about that time and
Mm-hmm.
replicate it now, it's that for me. And some people use drugs and alcohol. It's like that's their escapism, or some people, there's other things like porn. It's social media,
Mm-hmm.
coffee. Even coffee is an addiction.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like that's my drug is getting stuck in nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like that's my escapism is just distancing myself from where I am every so often.
Yep.
And it's important, like with everything, in moderation, to just bring myself back in and realize that things were also not that, like some of the hardest times of my life were in this town in Cedar Falls.
Mm.
And I look back fondly on a lot of things too. And it's hard to, you got to make sure to remember, it's like you went through terrible times here too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just remember the good things, of course you're going to want to come back here.
Right.
And then what would you do?
Yeah.
Versus, the reality is I'm in the best time of my life in terms of career, focus, control over my own mental state.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I didn't have any of that here.
Yeah.
Why? It's like you just got to rein it in. Be like,
Yeah.
I miss the people there,
Mm-hmm.
and I miss the familiarity. And I think, for me particularly, college, I had an incredibly rich college experience. Like I couldn't have had a better experience unless I like played for UNI's football team, like something like that. But I mean, I did everything. Like I worked at UNI. I made friends with employees. I'd been in every single building in rooms most people haven't seen and will never see.
Mm-hmm.
Brazil, the whole trip to Brazil.
Yeah. That was, yeah.
Played in pretty much
Life-changing.
every ensemble. I worked so many jobs around Cedar Falls and Waterloo that those places don't even exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was there when we were doing jam sessions at the Octopus. the amount of bands I've seen go through the Octopus that most people that either aren't here now or off doing something way better, stuff like that. And, you know, like I think fondly about being 19 and in the Octopus, getting snuck beers
snuck in
and
the
all
back.
that. Yeah, I just walked in and because I looked old and someone gave me a beer glass and I took it up to the front. I was like, I'll have another. And if Dave Dibler listens to this, I'm fucking dead. But
Mine was always if BYO Brass, if they didn't give him like a guest list for that show, it was get him in the back gate.
yeah, and you know and that's fun stuff. Like you can't replicate that in real life,
Right.
especially after you turn 21.
Right, yeah.
You can't replicate that.
Nothing
for
is
the
a
rest of
risk
your
anymore.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or and if you do take risks, they put you in jail. Like
Yeah, yeah.
like I'm gonna
you
run
can't mess
drugs
up
across the border. It's like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
you don't get a second chance.
Right.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. Like I had an incredibly rich college experience.
Yeah.
Like I had my toe in so many different ponds between my non-music school friends, music school friends, the jobs I worked at UNI, and it's definitely one of those things where it's like I maximized it. I really did. The only thing I could have done better would have been to just do everything I did better.
Yeah.
And more efficiently.
Yeah.
I would have done one more recital.
Yeah.
Like I had 4 recitals by the end, 4 or 5. Yeah, no, I think that's like the gist of what I was thinking, because you were saying about talking about my college experience and whatnot, and impressions on that. That's the gist of what I was thinking. It's like, man, I think I did it right.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat generally. Like you said, everything probably could have gone a little better, worked a little harder, more efficiently. But I particularly, and my brother just mentioned this in the chat, I think about the travel I was able to do in the name of music, both nationally and internationally.
Oh yeah.
And even like locally. That I don't know that would have been possible in any other circumstance. Like,
yeah. Even just to get to Brazil would cost more than the whole trip costs for us. And then we had someone to take us around everywhere and navigate.
Yeah.
I think that the only other thing too that I would have done differently, thinking back on it all, is that I would have tried maybe to land even more gigs, because I was probably the most gigged musician in that school.
Yeah,
besides maybe someone like Ryan Garmo or Chris Jensen when he was there. But even then, I was playing simultaneously in 3 orchestras, a jazz band and a combo, doing my own Copper Smoke Trials things back when that was around. Rest in pieces.
Yeah.
And then I was also doing the sideman for Chad Elliott and the Redemptions, and I was also doing the Octopus Jazz Jams, and doing the things down at Brian's on 4th when that was a place.
Couple things in my basement.
Couple things in your basement. Yeah, man. No, I definitely think I got a really unusual experience in that sense, where it's like I had the music industry experience, the early music industry experiences, I should say.
Yeah.
Like
getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
Quite, pretty heftily.
For sure. Yeah. And it did come at a cost in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Where it's like, maybe if you put too many eggs in different baskets, you don't have enough to make an omelet. If that makes sense.
But you gotta, what did you say earlier? You gotta crack them you still have to crack them to make the omelet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. If you put all your eggs in a bunch of different baskets that other people decide when they're going to use it.
Yeah.
But you need them all for one basket to make the omelet. Yeah. Then you're too thin.
Getting to be an oddly specific metaphor.
Yeah. I'm just wanting some eggs real bad.
Yeah.
For Todd.
After the podcast, I've got 18 of them in the fridge.
Put them in 18 different baskets.
Yeah. And then crack them.
I will say too, one of my most proudest accomplishments, thinking back, is that party at Cat Meows for Talkhorn. The first Cat Meows party. Wow.
I think that was before my time. That would have been. Oh wait.
You were.
No.
You were there. That was
that.
the one,
Yep. Okay.
like 300 or so people.
Yeah.
And
that's the infamous night.
Yeah. And the cops came by, but they were pulling over someone that wasn't going to the party at
Right.
all.
It scared
And
everyone
so
off.
everyone was like, "Oh
Yeah.
God!"
Yeah.
So then it was at a good level.
Unfortunately, one person in particular decided to stick around,
Yeah.
and
There was some good old things that happened that night.
yeah.
Man, yeah. That's one thing too I miss about college. Is like people don't throw parties outside of college really, and if you do, they're a lot weirder because it's not a bunch of people just decompressing.
Yeah.
Like, generally speaking, at a college party, especially I should say a music party particularly, like you could trust that everyone's gonna be nice, kind, and
Yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
be a piece of shit.
Mhm.
You don't know that when you go to someone else's house party.
Right.
You're like, is this person on meth? Like, especially South Dakota.
Yeah.
Hard to go to a house party. I'm looking around to make sure no one's on meth.
Right. Yeah. No, I am. I'm happy with sort of the environment that the School of Music had / hopefully will have after all this is over. But the whole like sense of community and definitely safety, like in that environment. I feel like not every, particularly women, like don't always feel like that at college parties. And I feel like we had a pretty good thing going
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thomas poop chair indeed. Yep.
That thing sat in the yard for a good half a year, and we would just throw things at it and put stuff on it, and then
Wow.
we eventually, in a daring midnight raid, put it on top of my car and drove it to someone else's house.
Oh my.
Drove to the guys living in an apartment and put
Oh,
it on
yeah.
their front stoop.
Ah. Nice. Yeah, there really is nothing else like college living.
Yeah, that's my parting lesson is maximize it, because most people aren't trying to make something of themselves outside of it.
Mm-hmm. So you've got a tune ready.
Hope so.
Do you wanna chat about that?
Yeah. Started writing love songs for the first time in my life. Well, to
Go figure.
no one's blame. But yeah, this is I don't even know if I got a name for this song yet. I just got it tracked on my computer at home, thinking about releasing it as a single coming up. Because right heavily now, I've been pushing the merchandise sales and whatnot, which was super successful, and so I was glad to get that. That was kind of the primary focus. But this one's called Reckless, and it's just kind of a very picturesque, little, not graphic, but kind of like a little more, what is it, hedonistic approach to a love song about just kind of sticking around with your significant other while the world is on fire around you, given the kind of climate that we're in right now. And it's really just about, I like some of my best quality time with my partner, with Hannah, is literally just like sitting there, laying in bed, like for one part of the day, like no one's trying to. It's the same thing as being in nature. Like no one's trying to sell me anything. No one's trying to, sway my political views any direction.
Yeah.
It's just two humans being humans, laying there, just enjoying each other's company. It's like a very earthly feeling too.
Yeah.
Especially on like a cold day. Oh, that nothing beats a cold, snowy day, and you're just inside, snuggled up in a blanket. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like to reminds me of that meme where it's like, yeah, sex is cool, but you ever snuggled? That's my business.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of snuggling, and business is good. All right, let's get this all. No idea what this will sound like coming through the.
Yeah, I can lean over and mix if I need to.
touching mine. Smells like cigarettes, $10 wine. I could hold you here for the rest of my time, 'cause that's the way you make me reckless. 'Cause that's the way you make me reckless. Lock the door and close the blinds. There's a place I want to take you in my mind. A search for answers buried deep within your thighs. 'Cause that's the way you make me reckless. Darling, you make me so reckless. Ecstasy running your hands through my hair. I surrender, oh Lord, it is unfair. Drown me in this wild backyard affair. 'Cause that's the way you make me reckless. Oh darling, you make me so reckless. Mark my body and set my soul alive. Show me in, girl, give me a good fight. Say my name all through the night. 'Cause that's the way you make me reckless. Oh, that's the way you make me so reckless.
That's nice. Yeah. If people enjoyed that, where could they go to find more stuff?
Well, I would definitely
Like it.
say the most helpful thing is either going to Bandcamp and spending your money on the music there, because Bandcamp lets you opt for how much money you want to spend. So you can give me $2, you can give me $200, and anything in between.
Is there a link for that?
Let's see. It's all can be found through ClaytonRyanMusic.com.
Gotcha.
Chances are, if you follow me on Facebook, you can find it. That's
Gotcha.
pretty much all I post about is my doings in the music. And Spotify is the second most helpful. I hate Steelify with a burning passion for how much they don't pay us for it. But it helps out with booking and marketing yourself when you have a higher number of followers on Spotify. So following the music is always good. Clayton Ryan, the Singing Mountain, is the band. I will have some more merch for sale coming up. And again, it can all be found on the website along with the social media links. The best bet, you can always just go to the website and it's kind of like an index of where to find everything. It's like, oh, here's the social media links. And from there you can figure out what else. But yeah, that's really the gist of it. Bandcamp is good.
Yeah.
Support your local bands as well. There's others in this area that are just killing it. My boys in the Hex Girls are one of my favorite bands. That's another one to check out.
Local to the Cedar Valley. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, they are something else. They're good at what they do.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming all the way to Iowa for the podcast.
Yep, I'm just gonna head back right after this.
Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure. Whenever you're back in town, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Touch base.
Yeah.
A year later,
Yeah.
where are they now?
Yeah.
We're still here.
You'll be like, everyone will. There'll be like 60,000 viewers just because of your following increase at this point.
That's the dream, man.
Yeah.
It'll be closer to probably 60 if I'm going by that.
That's where I initially started, and then I was like, nah, it's gonna happen.
Eventually, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it happen or die trying.
No,
Like,
I
that's
mean,
it.
if uh, if if that's the stuff you're creating, it's gonna catch on eventually, you know. So, no, yeah, I appreciate you coming on and chatting. It's always a great talk with Clayton Ryan in the house. So, all right. Thanks also to everyone watching and listening. Definitely check out the link I just posted. Support your boy. We'll be back on tomorrow night. I don't remember what time. I think probably around 8 or 9 with Ron Wilson. They're going to be releasing a single, I think shortly after the stream, but you'll hear it here first. And then Sunday, the Jungeon Masters are gonna be playing our Valentine's Day show a week late. So feel free to come back and hang. But for now, we'll see you next time.